Oh, hold on. We're starting.
Oh.
Here we go. Okay, I do believe we are live. Welcome everybody to another episode of Break the Rules live stream. Lev Polyakov, that is who I am, at LevPo on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. Of course, we got the great Giovanni Pennicchietta here. And of course, we have Gavin Wax, Jessica Deloach, Indian Bronson, and today we are having Gavin and Jessica go at it, twisting around who exactly they are going to be fighting for here. Switching teams midstream, you could say. So, Gavin, tell us a little bit about yourself. You were on BTR in a few episodes beforehand, but I would say you are a semi-newcomer. All the new people, please subscribe. But, Gavin, let's start with you. Just tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started.
Yeah, thanks, Lev. And I need to do these more. I know I've been a little flaky with you, so I apologize about that. But my background, I'm the president of the New York Young Republican Club. We're the oldest and largest Republican club in the country. I'm a contributor for Town Hall, for Newsmax. I'm involved with the National Young Republicans, Republicans for National Renewal, which is a populist Republican movement. And yeah, I'm here to debate. I've done political consulting as well on the side, freelance with that. So happy to discuss everything that comes to consulting, politics or otherwise.
Excellent. And of course, the great Jessica Deloach back with us for the fourth time. So, Jessica, thank you so much for coming in, and also tell us a little bit about yourself for those who do not know.
Sure. So I'm a progressive Democrat, liberal, however you guys want to describe me. I'm a political operative, political strategist. I've been working, in the political realm for over 15 years now. I usually focus all my time either on strategy or communications. I have worked on campaigns on every level. I'm just totally thrilled to be here. I'm not going to belabor my credentials, but I will say, so I'm an Arkansan, and just thinking about what Gavin just shared. So I, at one point, was the president of the Young Democrats of Arkansas. So it'll be really interesting to hear his perspective, especially since he has a younger person's perspective. I know he's a Republican, but I also know that we're arguing the other side today. So it'll be really interesting to get his take on what he thinks a Democrat is.
I love that we have a young Dem from a red state and a young Republican from a blue state. It's an interesting dichotomy already.
That's how it works here, people. That's how the magic happens.
Was that one Thomas Sowell book?
Black rednecks, and I forgot what it was called.
Yeah, something
Black rednecks, white something or others. I forgot.
Yeah. I'm going to take a look at that later. But anyway, let us actually get started then with Gavin defining what the Democratic Party means to you as the Democrat strategist. Let's start with that. I think Jessica has the right idea here.
Oh, God, I wish I didn't have to go first, because this whole reverse role thing is a little weird for me.
And by the way, it's Black Rednecks and White Liberals. That's the title of the book.
There you go. Bizoos and Black Rednecks.
Yep. I mean, if I'm speaking as a Democrat strategist, I guess, I would say that the party stands for equity, for all the new forms of progressivism and, conquering the new frontier in terms of new forms of inclusion and new ways to, reach out to disenfranchised communities across the world, that we are a party that believes in global cooperation, not so much these relics of the past of nationalism, of borders, and of all that icky nonsense. That we're a party that believes in, social justice, and, that we're not stuck to any old paradigms or definitions, that we're constantly open to adjusting and redefining and expanding that term. This is very hard for me, by the way. I'm really struggling here. We are open-minded, and we are very concerned about, violence in all its forms, whether it's physical or verbal or mental or otherwise. And we're trying to look out for people and protect everyone's, stuff. So it's good. It's good. I totally.
Well, what about now that the Biden administration's in power? What is the strategy going forward to ensure that the Democrats have a one-party imperium state forever? And like the problem with Kansas, how come those rednecks just vote against their interests. How can Biden convince people, Kamala Harris, Biden, whoever, we'll see, convince people that they have to vote for their interests? How do you do that?
Well, as we know, Republicans are only in power because of voter suppression. We need to expand the voter rolls. We need as many people to be voting as possible. We need them to be voting as early as possible. We need to remove every impediment there is to vote, every qualification, every obstacle. It needs to be as easy to vote as humanly possible. We need to federalize these systems. We need to bring power to the rightly elected leaders in DC to make these decisions and not local corrupt states, whether it's in Georgia or elsewhere. We need all of this to be federalized. And we as Democrats believe that if the voter rolls are fully open, if everyone's able to get access to vote, if there's no impediments from the good old boys, then we will win every election. And if that requires even opening the borders, then we should let anyone who wants to come here to our great nation come here and vote here and take part in our system. If they come here and they live here, they have every right to take part in the political system. They have every right to vote and effectuate policy and effectuate change. They are taking part in the economic system, so they should take part in the political system. So we need to remove these burdensome restrictions on immigration and the borders. And we need to be, kind-hearted to people across the world who want to come to these shores for a better life, for better opportunities. We should not discriminate on the basis of their origins or otherwise. And I think if we approach things that way, I think that would guarantee generational Democrat rule across the country. It starts with opening up and fighting back against the voter suppression, easing our immigration restrictions, and everything else will fall into place.
Well, I'm personally sold. Jessica, your turn as far as how do you define your Republican Party that you are now in?
Sure. So the Republican Party's objectives are simple and clear. This is America first. We protect our borders. We keep our people safe. We are not afraid to say that we stand for freedom for all. And when I say all, I'm talking about citizens. We want to reduce your tax paying burdens. We want to make life easier for you when you're hardworking and, just focusing on raising your family up by your own values. We don't want the government to overreach and tell you how to raise your children. We don't want the government to overreach and tell you that you're not allowed to worship freely throughout this country, as our country was founded on the principle that you should be able to worship freely. And what we are trying to protect this country from is this liberal overreach that is upsetting our way of life. It's upsetting natural order. We are tired of watching crime infiltrate our communities across the country that's being driven by the influx of illegal immigrants coming across our borders that Democrats just want to fling open to the world. We are totally disinterested in all of this, social justice warrior nonsense that's infiltrating our academic institutions and our workplaces. It's time to get back to business as usual and make sure that we're putting this country first and getting ourselves away from this victim mentality that Democrats like to promote. I don't think I need to belabor it. Again, it's America first, and we feel confident in our ability to take our future back from this liberal nonsense that has been flooding every facet of our being and upsetting American life as we know it.
So Jessica, now that you're America first, so now that I'm assuming you have a Groiper avatar on Twitter, yeah.
and see what M says. He says, "Who is this based female?" That's what M says. So
it's the first tab. It's their first debate. So, what would be the Republican strategy going forward, in your opinion, after the defeat of Trump and Trumpism, and where does the Republican Party go forward after? How does it reshape itself now that it doesn't really have a clear vision for the future in terms of its own identity itself, because it's caught between sort of like the usual order, like neoconservative to neoliberal, and now, of course, populist Trumpism. Where does the Republicans go from here?
Okay, so just so you guys know, I'm going to do my best to answer these questions as if I'm a Republican. Okay, this is quite an exercise. So if I were in a setting where I had to answer that exact question, I would immediately push back and say that the Republican Party has not lost its footing. We are not operating at the deficit that you suggest. And even though President Trump lost the last election, there's clearly still a desire for his leadership throughout this country. We've been seeing, significant growth in our membership across the country. People who are already upset with the Biden agenda, we feel confident in our ability to reestablish power. Within the White House, we already have significant influence in the judiciary. We have significant influence on state and local level government across the country. Nothing stays in place for too long. There's not going to be a time where you have Democrats or Republicans that maintain so much power for long periods of time. That's not the world that we live in now. It is kind of a ping pong ball game, if you will. So it's just a matter of pushing your message and turning out the right voters. So I would argue that nothing stays the same.
Can I also say, as a proud Democrat, that we need to expand the franchise to the disenfranchised in the District of Columbia, in Puerto Rico? We should expand franchise to any part of the world that wants to become part of our country, whether it's outlying Pacific Islands or otherwise. We need more states. We need. Well,
what about the
voting.
Unintended consequences, as Thomas Sowell always talks about? What would be the unintended consequences of doing that?
I don't know what unintended consequences are. I support policy because we need to do the right thing.
Okay, well, then I'll go to Jessica. Jessica, what would be the unintended consequences of the proposals that Gavin just gave right now?
Okay, so if you want a scenario where we're, adding more voters and we're adding more states, I do think that that's not something that we are equipped to do just yet. I think that having such a large influx of voters could possibly create more disruption in our voting systems across the country. We already have significant issues. I'm sorry, it's hard to say this with a straight face. We have such significant issues with voter fraud across the country. So if we add more people, or if we allow more people to vote, then we're going to have more voter fraud. It's just that simple. And then our tax structure will change. We're going to end up having to spend more taxpayer dollars to support these new states. And that's just not something that the American people have the appetite to do right now.
And what is your stance on voter ID?
Oh, so obviously we need more restrictions. We need to make it harder for people to vote because, number one, voting is the most sacred thing you can do. And since we have so much corruption in our voting systems, we need to make sure that that's completely protected from any sort of disruption and any sort of activity that could lead to an illegitimate outcome. So it shouldn't be the case that every policy that the Republican puts forward is called out as being racist, because it's not. Just as we saw in Georgia, the Democrats went completely bonkers over what the Georgia state government wanted to put in place in terms of strengthening voter protection laws. And what we know is that we have other states in the country that are actually blue states that have even harsher protections on the books than what Georgia had proposed, but Democrats didn't speak out about that. And I think that's pretty disingenuous. So
this is just racist. This is absolutely racist. And if we're gonna really talk right now, we need to talk about the unelected judges on the so-called Supreme Court. It is absolutely ridiculous that we have an arbitrary cap on the number of justices. That should be removed. The courts are obviously under the control of the Turtle Man McConnell from Kentucky, and he is really, in my mind, one of the most despicable. I'm talking both sides right now. I think we can both. He is one of the most despicable people in American politics today. But we need to remove the arbitrary restrictions on the size of the Supreme Court. Nowhere in the Constitution does it dictate how large the court has to be. There is no cap. The founders were, smart in some ways, and I think they would agree with modern Democrats that the Constitution should be interpreted and should be a living, breathing document. And in that sense, we should open up the courts. We should look at these courts, particularly the Supreme Court, and make it more democratic. There's no reason.
Well, what's a good number? What's 100, or the Circle of Tyrants had 15? I don't know.
I think double digits. I think we should definitely break into the double digits. I think, we are in the, it is the current year. So there's no reason we should be restricted at a single digit size Supreme Court.
Should they have quotas in terms of identity?
Yes.
You should have a trans judge. Well, they already have a Latina judge. They had a black man. Oh,
wait,
but he's
Latina?
evil.
How dare you? It's Latinx.
Latinx. I'm very sorry. Oh, they had a black man.
Gio,
but apparently
he
wasn't black enough. Apparently, Clarence Thomas. So they gotta have a black guy again.
There are self-hating blacks, and there are people who are internally not the race that they outwardly appear to be. You can be, externally a black man, but internally very much a white
man that has a white person beliefs.
That's kind of
white
the
antebellum plantation owner part.
Yeah.
Wait, say that again.
I was engaged in vile slander of proud Italian Americans.
That's par for the course for BTR. And by the way, we have $2 US from Super Iron Bob.
We came to the shores of America, and we were just white people waiting to come out. Like in every Viet, in every Italian white person waiting to come out. What did Super Iron Bob say?
Wait, what's that Italian dessert? It's like is it a calzone? Wait, what's that Italian dessert? The one that looks like a burrito with the white
cannoli.
Cannoli, yeah. So it's like
Lev, you're from New York. How come you didn't know that automatically?
Okay, we have $2 US from Super Iron Bob, who says, "I like turtles." So there we go.
I saw this painting once.
That's for you, Mitch.
It was part of the gallery organized by Marilyn Minter. What was it called? They had a painting of Mitch McConnell as a turtle. I shit you not. You can look this up. And he was doing something sexual from behind to Donald Trump, who was also a turtle. I'm not making this up. This was a real painting.
Oh, I believe in you.
Yeah. There's a tweet about it. I could dig
for our Democratic strategists. So a lot is made about the white working class and disenfranchised whites, economic anxiety, this, that, and the other thing as reasons for populism and the reason people would vote for Donald Trump. On the other hand, despite what seems like a pretty overt commitment to people of color, communities of color, disenfranchised voters, the Democratic Party seems to be pretty much in lockstep with the policy desires and social sentiments of billionaires, of really, really large corporations. It's the start of Pride Month. Every Fortune 500 company, every CEO who matters, every U.S. institution of any note is currently, flying the rainbow flag. And, what do you say to the accusation that, actually a lot of the social justice prerogatives of the Democratic Party overtly are pursued really as kind of social cover for its rewarding of corporate interests and, frankly, oligarchic interests, just sort of laundering those in under the guise of being very socially progressive.
Well, let's go to Jessica first.
Oh, our Republican strategist. To our Republican strategist, yes.
Yes.
So I'll pose a different question to our Republican strategist.
Oh, okay.
So for a Republican strategist, Trump's voters are almost exclusively white, and this is true even in states that are pretty diverse, where he outperformed Romney, he outperformed McCain with Hispanic voters, Latinx voters. He got those numbers, but overwhelmingly the nation of people that vote for Trump and then voted for kind of the MAGA agenda are white Americans. How come there's so little attention paid in like sort of the official organs of the Republican Party to like some kind of positive estimation or some sort of valorization of white identity in the same way that it valorizes people like me, Oppie Americans, a very real and and well-defined ethnicity. There's lots of Hispanic Republican organizations, Oppie Republican organizations, but there's nothing that sort of recognizes a white identity in the Republican Party. Why is that?
Man, I wish I could answer this question as a Democrat. Okay. The reason for this, a short reason for this would be because what you see in this country is a dynamic where there's an ongoing conversation about whiteness in general. And so it would be ill-advised to put whiteness on any sort of platform because there's been so much work being done to create greater equity, which I think both Democrats and Republicans can agree is something that needs to be addressed on myriad levels, just whether it be in the workforce, economically, you name it. There's not going to come a time anytime soon where there's a conversation centered around whiteness in a positive way, because right now a lot of the dialogue is about the toxicity of the concentration of whiteness. And that is something that everyone in this country is having to reckon with, whether they agree with it or not. It also doesn't help that you have seen a surge in, I guess, proud white identity that's being concentrated in the hands of people who do view themselves as superior. And that's something that, Republicans and Democrats can agree is a problem that Republicans have, not loudly enough, have decried. And it's difficult because there are members of the Republican Party who do not find this to be a problem. They are proud of being white. They don't want to be made to feel ashamed of being white, and they feel like they're being asked to do that. So, I do think that, as you rightfully pointed out, there are organizations popping up across the country, and some that have existed for a while, that are, focused on, the Latinx community, the Asian American Pacific Islander community, you name it, that is conservative, but doesn't get a lot of attention because that's not something that's promoted in the mainstream. And another Republican talking point would be that the mainstream media doesn't want to have that dialogue. And until that changes, you're not going to see a lot of emphasis being placed on those groups either.
So you're saying that the future, in order for conservative politics in America to survive, whatever we agree that is, you're saying that in some ways they have to almost craft into more of like a Latinx futurist type of movement where mass immigration is just here to stay, and they're going to have to sort of slowly convert Latinx voters over to the Republican Party. Is that the strategy going forward?
No, not necessarily. Actually, okay. Man, another question I want to answer is myself. Okay, so
you'll have plenty of chances, and when the masks come off.
Yeah.
Okay, so no,
the masks are never coming off. We need to follow the science. Stop spreading disinformation.
Oh, that was a quick one.
That was a quick one.
So no, the answer to your question, Gio, is no, not necessarily. But
so you should have a white nativist working class political party then.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I think that political parties should be open to, it should transcend race. I do think that people, you can meet people all across the country who, just because they're Black, shouldn't be expected to be a member of the Democratic Party. And they'll probably tell you that. There are plenty of people who do speak out about this because they don't want to be pigeonholed into a certain political identity because of their race. And at some point, all of this stuff transcends race. And I think what speaks to that pretty loudly is the way younger conservatives are reaching out and speaking up against or about certain issues. It shows you the diversity that's growing among conservative ranks. And so, no, I don't agree with that statement.
But would you say that, then we got to get to the Democrat here. Would you say that this strategy of yours has been the norm, at least until very recently? Since I would say maybe Ronald Reagan, probably not. Let's just say the Clinton restructuring years into Bush Jr., that's pretty much been the norm for Republicans to try to overtly appeal to quote unquote minority demographics, but yet it hasn't worked. So what would you say to like those more Republicans who aren't as queasy about the thought of having like, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, white nationalist or white identitarian sort of at least implicit sort of white working class type of politics? Like, what would you say to them? Because we've seen the track record of that type of like, you know what I mean? Of course, you're up against the media, right? Because they would say that, you know, the Republican Party, the GOP, they're inherently racist or whatnot. But what would you say to that? Do you think you should just push forward then to have sort of like a multi-ethnic nationalist party?
Well, I think that diversity in any political party in this country is inevitable. It's just inevitable. This is not going to be a situation where, you know, long-term younger generations are going to adhere to wanting to be, again, pigeonholed into something by their race. Like, all these old people are going to die off. That's the reality. That's actually a problem the Republican Party has to face, is that the most reliable segments of their voting base, you know, they're older, they're evangelicals. I don't think that we're going to lose our grip on the evangelical voting base anytime soon. But when it comes to younger people, you have lots of different rising stars on a number of levels who represent, you know, all sorts of ethnic groups across the world. And they don't want to be pigeonholed into something just because of their race. And I do think that that group over time, these more open-minded individuals just overtake the people who have looked at politics through a white lens. But again, do I expect people who have a problem facing diversity to cross over because they're mad that the Republican Party is becoming more increasingly diverse? No, I don't. It's an unfortunate reality, though, that some people view politics through a racial lens, but it's also inevitable. And, you know, the Republican Party, as it is transforming, isn't going to stand for that. But that is something that our party has to reckon with.
I have a question for the Republican strategist, and then a related follow-up for the Democratic strategist. So Republican strategist Jessica Deloach. So as a proud person of color, like why should I believe the Republican Party when they say these sorts of things? Because there's this huge legacy of racism. Obviously the last president was clearly a racist.
Southern strategy.
Clearly just playing. Yeah, I mean, we won't repeat the Lee Atwater quote. But why should you? I mean, I could. I'm a POC, but you guys can't. I'm a proud brown American. But why should people of color, who will soon make up the majority of the electorate in this country, why should they believe the Republican Party when it says things like it has a space for us, or actually will be represented within it, and be given equal treatment, when its electorate and its vote banks are so overwhelmingly white and are voting for an implicitly white identity? Like where's the space for us in the Republican Party? And then a question for noted Democratic strategist and lifelong progressive Gavin Wax. Why doesn't the Democratic Party make more of this issue? Why doesn't the Democratic Party, you think, talk more about the coming white minoritization of the United States, and more about how much more relevant and much more powerful people of color like myself will be, particularly as Indians, particularly as Brahmins, will be in positions of power in the United States? Why is that something that's sort of shied away from, and just kind of like the bland talk of equity is used? I mean, isn't there a price to be exacted for prior wrongs?
So I will make my answer to this question short. I would say this. You could have asked that same question of Democrats coming out of the 1960s and 70s. Well, basically just the very, from basically all the time leading up to the 1960s, you could ask yourself, why would I feel comfortable being a Democrat when there are so many people who were in the party who had promoted, whiteness, and they were afraid of anything that wasn't white? And you can see how the party has transformed over time. Well, if the Republican Party's values, when it comes to national security and maintaining and building a strong economy, having freedom of faith, if you value those things, then you can attach yourself to the party and say, I see a better future for the party. I can get involved with this party and I can transform it into what I want it to be. That's exactly what Democrats did coming out of the 60s. Now, is it perfect? No, it's not. But you'll hear, Republicans like to get in debates with Democrats. And as a proud lifelong Republican, I've used this talking point too, that at one point in time, the Democrats had incredibly racist members of their party, but things have changed.
Bird,
so,
Joe Biden's friend.
Yeah, I think that the point here is that things change, nothing stays in place. And if you want to attach yourself to the values that we espouse, then you can find a place for yourself within the party. It's never going to be static.
So Democrats, the real racist. Now, Gavin, Indian, maybe you could repeat your question to Democrat strategist. Nope.
I don't think it's necessary. I stand with my brown brother, Indian Bronson, and I have many points to make about the cisgendered white female who is talking from the Republican camp. I don't want to address her by name.
Much appreciated. Wakanda forever.
You wouldn't address me by name. That's rude.
Yes, we don't recognize imperialists, but I do think that the Democrat Party has had a problem in its past, and we are the progressive party, so we've moved forward in terms of shedding out our white imperialists from positions of power and even from the base of our voting bloc. We do not rely on the so-called struggling white working class, when we all know that struggle can only be determined by race, not by purely socioeconomic matters, that it is impossible for someone who is white to really struggle in this country. And this is simply right-wing propaganda that is promoted by noted fascists in the media and elsewhere. But we are committed to the agenda of making this country more equitable in all its forms. When we can achieve that by having a society that is minority majority, and we will still continue to refer to it as minority even when it is majority, because minority forever, it is only then we can start to really realize our political dreams and manifestations of a global post-racial utopia. But until then, we must advance the causes of various racial and ethnic nationalist movements, because they need to essentially catch up to the centuries of cis white males dominating national and global affairs. So to that, we are fully on board with Black nationalism, with brown nationalism, with queer nationalism, and all other forms of minority nationalism. It is only fair. It is just simply playing catch up, so to speak. And
for how long though? Like, when would you say they have already caught up, and when can we?
As long as is necessary, Lev. As long as is necessary, because fighting
the Hegelian dialectic never ends. That's the
exactly. Yeah. Fighting the millennia of injustices perpetuated on communities of color, on ancient transsexual communities, has no time limit. They must always be. We must always fight for this, and this is just part of something that is even beyond politics, really, that I do not think that our colleagues, if you can even say that on the other end of the aisle, could even understand. This is much deeper, but everything Republicans accuse us of being in the past, they are in the present. You want to talk about Jim Crow, you want to talk about the racist policies of the old Democrat Party. Sure, there was a party reversal, as Dinesh D'Souza already says, and the Republicans inherited all the elements of the old racist South with their Southern strategy. They appealed to the racist South, and the former Democrats became Republicans. And we are very happy to lose those voters. We don't want those voters. We want a new breed of pansexual...
BIPOC.
Yes, pansexual brown people to represent us. We do not need plantation whites anymore. And I stand firmly with all my brothers and sisters.
The settlers, you don't need. But what about the settlers, Gavin? Okay, so what about? So you're saying that the Democrats have to get rid of any sort of like old school middle class unionism, like any sort of economic socialism. They have to drive headfirst into sort of, I'm guessing from your screed there, a sort of ethnic balkanization of America?
We don't need unions anymore. Unions are we need unions that are fully representing the future of America, not the past. We need to find common ground with corporations. Corporations have been shown to be a force for good. They have embraced social justice, and we welcome all institutions that embrace our core tenets and our views.
Well, that goes back to Indian Bronson's original question for you, Gavin. When it comes to woke capital, do you see any problems, any unintended consequences with all these corporate powers being able to use social justice as a shield to get away with a lot of wrongs?
When you see the Amazon factories with the wellness box, wagey cagey wellness boxes, where the workers can go there for exactly 1 minute and cool down. And do you think that this is like a form of economic what do they call it? Indentured servitude by another means? Like, do you think Jeff Bezos, I know he gives a lot of money to the Democrats, but do you think he really has the best interests of the workers in mind?
I think we need to look beyond just old dichotomies of labor versus capital. We have entered into a new woke era of the body politic. We must understand that our woke brothers in senior management are looking out for us, and we love the
Indians
managerial
with
class.
level 3 visas, you mean?
Yeah, look, the managerial class is the future of our movement. We support the cosmopolitan managerial class, and they understand and the nuances and the intricacies of our ideology and our viewpoints. And if they are going to propel it through their institutions, then we fully welcome it. And if they are to deviate, then we have no problem returning to what was our view about 2 years ago.
Well, that brings me to Jessica. When it comes to this managerial class, what kind of potential risks do you see in having this class be empowered in the way that Gavin was just talking about?
Well, I'd like to go back to when we're talking about labor unions and we're talking about these Goliaths that, have so much control over, one industry that impacts all other industries, that's just part of American greatness, right? Think about all of these other tycoons that revolutionized these industries that have had such a tremendous effect on our country, whether it be the Rockefellers or, you name it. Look at anybody who's been involved in an industry that's revolutionized things. So Jeff Bezos gets involved on the ground floor of something, and then he's supposed to feel bad about his success that has actually empowered so many people throughout the world. When you talk about labor unions, you're talking about a system that has had so much corruption within it. I'm not saying that labor unions have not achieved great things for people, because the reality is that labor unions are the reason that people have a day off each week in most jobs. But, should it be that you live in America, you find your way into an industry, and then you achieve great success, and then you should be made to feel bad for that? That seems a little backwards, especially when you're putting that up against the American dream. It's a capitalist nation. This is the country that we live in, and people want to begrudge other people for their success. And that's just not something that the Republican Party can abide by.
What's interesting, though, now, Jessica, you're going a little bit off the reservation, so to speak, when it comes to what I see the Republican Party being more today, where it's being more populist, it's being more against a lot of these, people would call them robber barons, or however you want to phrase it, where their concern has to do with a lot of these jobs being sent overseas, about a lot of Americans being disempowered from, having as much opportunities as they could have had if not for these trade deals. So I'm curious, if you were to put that hat on temporarily as well, could you make a point for the problems with a lot of these trade deals that, let's say, the Republicans of the past and the Democrats of the past have not had as much trouble with, but now there seems to be more of a movement against them?
So basically, are you asking me whether or not I support a company's decision to take jobs abroad? Is that what you're asking me?
Take bribes.
No.
Freudian slip right there.
No, I said, I don't know. Anyway, so, okay. Are you asking me if I'm okay with jobs being moved abroad?
Yes.
Well, if you're looking at just like the pure business interest here, so, is it a company's responsibility to provide these opportunities, or is their responsibility, to their bottom line, to their stakeholders, which we know that they are mandated to honor their stakeholders. So if it's a better business decision for them to outsource certain types of labor, who are we to stop them? Because their bottom line is about their business. And if their business is successful, then that speaks to the success of our country. I don't think it's any more complicated than that.
This is very interesting. I was not expecting this particular response, because if you were to be actually brought in as a strategist to the Republican Party, what you said right now may be, I mean, I could ask Gavin once the masks come off, but it may be different than the response that the Republicans would have, and we're going to get into this a little bit later. But Gavin, there was a very interesting comment from a large Cancer. I can't say that's my favorite name in the world, but it is what it is. Basically talking about how you were creating a leftist straw man out of what would be more of, let's say, a mainstream Democrat. So just for the sake of difference, what if you were to, in best faith possible, if you were to strategize for the Democrats, what would you do? What would, without the,
Well, stepping out of character for 1 second, I saw that comment. It is interesting, but I will direct anyone who claims that I'm acting as a straw man right now to look at some videos of DSA conferences and tell me that I'm really acting like a.
But is that mainstream Democrat? That's the big question, because there still seems to be somewhat of a schism within. You have the Nancy.
What is mainstream though? What is it? What's driving the party? Is it what's impacting the actual primary results? I mean, you could have a minority politically that is mainstream because they are the ones driving any of the actual political results. You could have a 10% very vocal, very organized, very active minority within a party that directs it, which I think is probably happening with the Democrats. I'm sure there's plenty of legacy Dems, moderate Dems, but they're not the ones driving the machinations of the party apparatus any longer. But back into character real quick. Back into character. Speaking as a Democrat consultant, again, I think that our strategy moving forward is very simple. Our strategy is to counteract all the Republicans' efforts to sabotage the fundamentals of our democracy. That starts at the voting booth. We need to expand the franchise. We should expand the franchise to younger voters, to people that are even 15 or 16. They are very much part of our society at large. They should.
But don't they need learning? Don't they need wisdom?
Vote?
Yes, that's why we should expand. We should expand educational opportunities to all ages. We do a good job, but we need to do more. So I'm fully committed to funding programs for 15 or 16-year-olds to learn about civics and to learn about the political process. We are very happy to teach them that so they become informed voters. And we need to make colleges accessible for everyone. I mean, everyone should be going to college. Everyone should be taking classes in civics, in liberal arts, in government.
Sociology, that's the main.
How are we going to afford all this, though? You're talking about a lot of these things, and maybe they're great, but where is the money going to come from?
Well, the money is going to come from the Treasury, and we are going to, if we have to print the money, we will print the money. I think these antiquated ideas of economic systems and monetary economics and inflation, they've proven themselves to be kind of relics and not based in the real world. As we've seen, there's been plenty of money printing, and there's been plenty of, debt, and we have not seen price inflation surge to anything that is concerning. So we can certainly finance these through many different financial instruments. But at the end of the day, the education of our youth and our future generations is more important than some, murmurings about inflation or the economy.
Wow.
Apex, do you want to get in on this, buddy? This is kind of your thing. So are you there, Apex?
Oh, Apex, can you hear us? Hello, Apex. And by the way,
we lost Apex.
Well, I hope we're
No,
gonna
I'm
get
here.
I guess we're
Sorry.
at the zenith.
There we
Sorry,
go.
guys.
Perfect.
There we go.
Apologies. My internet connection is pretty trash today. So, well, we, Mr. Longtime Democratic Strategist, we are actually seeing some pretty substantial inflation raises recently. What do you have to respond to that?
Some of that is corporate collusion driven. And obviously we're coming out of a pandemic where we needed to spend resources. But again, this should not deflect from our educational policies, how we have to educate future voters, future citizens of our great nation. So again, I think if we draw too much into some economic figures, we lose the bigger picture here, which is a educated, well-educated, well-institutionalized generation of future Americans of all colors and genders.
What would you
And
say to someone? Sorry, Lev, you want to go?
Go for it. And then I'm going to ask about the last topic, but go for it, Apex.
Okay, what would you say to someone who says that if you haven't learned civics by the time you leave the 12th grade, I'm not sure how much you're going to learn in university? It appears to me as if the K through 12 education system has just been allowed to decay, and you slap a Band-Aid on it called university and you call it a day, which, you know, let's be clear here, the amount of student debt that is out there is incredible. I mean, might a more progressive policy be one focused on public K through 12 education, and then actually saying, rather than everyone going to university and getting a huge amount of debt, instead might we demand companies stop cutting all of their training and start training workers again? Because let's be real, most jobs do not require college degrees.
Yeah, so, first-year university is pretty much just a catch-up mulligan. It's not of any significance whatsoever. Well, at least that's my experience.
There's certainly inequities in our K through 12 system that need to be fixed, and I'm fully supportive of fixing them. We need to also level the playing field, so to speak. Too many resources are going to private and religious schools and even homeschooling, and all of that is a distraction, and it's proving to be detrimental to society as a whole. We need to make sure that everyone is in the same system, so everyone has incentives to make sure that system is good. They can't just run away to their own system. But anyone who would say that you can't learn civics by the 12th grade, I think that is patronizing and a symptom of an imperialistic mindset. And we need to constantly strive to expand our educational opportunities, particularly to those disadvantaged communities, which are probably what you are referring to in a passive sense.
Last topic, foreign policy, and I'm going to start with Gavin.
I wanted to talk about redistricting too, but that could be our last. Well, maybe we'll have a little bit. Go ahead.
So let's. Okay. Actually, you know what? Since foreign policy, I'm going to have you think about that for a little bit. Let's go to redistricting and then foreign policy. But let's go quick. We have 10 more minutes.
Jessica, do you think it's a good strategy for the Republicans to now I'm Canadian, we have our districts are pretty much solidified, but in America apparently you could fudge the numbers. So is it good that in certain southern states the Republicans can shift around districts, and that's really the only strategy that they have, let's face it, to sort of exclude certain voting demographics? At least that's the way the media says it's to exclude certain demographics from holding majority. What do you think of that as a Republican strategist?
I would disagree that that's the only option, because it's not true. In fact, you can look around the country and see this, growing support and how it, how it's moving through rural America. When you're talking about redistricting, obviously, this is a math-based situation, but people, different states have different ways that they can kind of play with those numbers and draw the lines. I don't believe that this is entirely concentrated to one region in the country, because, you're seeing a lot of Republican favoritism in the Midwest. And especially when you're looking up to, more rural states, you're seeing a lot of discomfort with liberal policies. Look at what's happening in Idaho and Oregon, where you've got counties that are saying we don't want to be a part of the state of Oregon anymore. Things have gone off the rails there with this liberal agenda. We would rather be included with what's happening in Idaho. I think that's quite interesting. And so I don't think that we are at a disadvantage there. But again, this is another moving target, and it happens at once every 10 years. So the Republicans are in pretty good shape when it comes to redistricting, and the Democrats know that, which is why they're freaking out about how redistricting will ultimately shake out.
And Gavin, how do you prevent the Republicans from, preventing certain peoples from voting in their district? I don't know anything about. I know how it works. So I just hear this word redistricting. Well, we have the mask off. We'll talk a little bit. But go ahead, Gavin.
I will try to answer that question to the best of my ability. The courts, when they were actually democratic, ruled one person, one vote, and we need to make sure that there is equity in our districts and an apportionment. And there is a problem in our country with many Republican legislatures, redistricting to favor themselves, to form Republican districts, and to basically push out people of color and minority communities from having an effective political voice in these different states. So we need laws on the books to prevent this from happening. We need to nationalize this process. The states should not be given the authority to district as they please, because many of the times these lines are frankly racist, and it could be even, you could draw comparisons to redlining and things like that. There's a lot of issues with how these Republican legislatures are drawing their district lines, and we need to nationalize this and bring it to the federal level with an oversight board led by our most esteemed political scientists and academics to draw equitable district lines. But honestly, we should also look at other voting systems that break through this districting paradigm. We should elect every official at the state level like we do the Senate, and we should stop things like the Electoral College from perpetuating this situation where smaller states and small population areas outweigh the votes and the views of the vast majority of Americans. It is a ridiculous system. It's antiquated. It's inherently undemocratic, and we need to review everything from the Electoral College down to how we engage in redistricting of congressional seats.
So we need to get rid of the Electoral College, have just the popular vote, and also have open borders for all. Is that your? Yes,
if I'm going to summarize the platform
Democrat
policies that we need to ensure generational Democrat control, it starts with federalizing all voting laws to be as equitable, inclusive, and open as possible. Subsets of that include expanding the voting age to as low as 15. In addition, we need to expand franchise to jurisdictions that currently do not have it, whether it is the District of Columbia or Puerto Rico. That would all fall into one bucket. But in addition to that, we need to make sure that our immigration policies are humanitarian at their core, and they have respect for the individuals seeking to come to these shores for a better life. So to that end, if anyone wants to come to this country, they should be fully entitled to and should be given all the protections of the law thereof. And another bucket in terms of the policies, just to summarize, the Electoral College and redistricting. We need to eliminate the Electoral College. It should be based on a popular vote. It is absolutely obscene that we have had multiple Republican officials elected in the past 20, 30 years at the presidential level who did not secure the majority of the vote. This is inherently undemocratic and not something that should be prevalent in a free society. And districts should be the redistricting process should also be federalized to ensure that all communities, minority groups, people of color, and transsexuals can get the proper voting representation that they would like. So I think those are the core positions that I, as a Democrat strategist, would advocate for in order to ensure future Democrat control in this country.
Excellent. Now I want to get to, before you run out of time here, I want to get to the question of foreign policy, conflicts, wars, hostile nations. Gavin, where do you stand?
We need to have a very loud voice in international affairs. The neo-fascistic Russians are expanding their grip once again over both continental Europe, Central Asia, and the Middle East. We need to.
I agree with that, actually, unironically, but go on.
We need to fight back fully against that. I am also very concerned as we have removed ourselves from global affairs that we have seen a rise of the far right in Europe, even in countries that are quote unquote our allies, whether it be Poland or Hungary or the Czech Republic or Austria.
So we should occupy the Baltic states who are far right. Like we should decapitate. What's the guy's name in Hungary? Lukashenko.
Orban. Orban
is in
Hungary.
Lukashenko is.
We need to use the instruments of our State Department and intelligence service to remove from power budding fascists, white nationalists, and others who are rising to power across.
What about the girls in Afghanistan? Do they deserve an education too?
Well, we must understand that different cultures have different views, and we must be, appreciative of that.
Gavin, I believe the standard fair democratic line is that leaving Afghanistan would undermine the immense gains made in Afghan girls' school construction over the last 2 decades.
Sorry, I'm. This is all new for me.
I like this coaching on behalf of Indian Bronson.
Thank you to my POC.
Just saying. We gotta be fair here.
No, but thank you.
Yeah, Belarus is Lukashenko. Yeah.
No, but what would you do in countries like Poland?
But that's a novel idea, to bombing Poland and Belarus and Hungary.
No, but Poland. Okay, but the politicians in Poland, even people who are on the far right, they are still against Russia. So would you get rid of a strong power base in Poland just for the sake of getting rid of people that you would see as being further to the right than you'd prefer?
I support a third way. I think both the Poles and the Russians are fascists in their own ways, and I will let the fascists fight each other to the death. And we redraw the borders to be equitable for Polish persons of color who are not currently represented.
According to E. Michael Jones, never mind. That's just a stupid.
Oh god.
And also, I cannot forget Belarus, another fascistic country that we should dismantle. Obviously, Lukashenko there stole his election through, stuffing the ballots and other unseedy forms of electoral sabotage. So we need to send in foreign observers from the UN or some other respected international organization to monitor these elections to ensure that there is no fraud and that, fantastic international liberals can lead these countries on the right path.
What if Salvini wins?
So I have a question for our Republican strategist. So our Democratic strategist here has given a very full-throated endorsement of muscular American power, as is kind of typical of these, rainbow painted Raytheon missile bearers. But the Republican Party isn't really innocent of that either. I recall at CPAC, our guy Mike Pompeo. Perhaps the best Secretary of Defense that there ever was. He talked about the horrors of an Iranian regime that doesn't valorize every possible expression of sexual identity, and the horrors of an Iran that doesn't respect women's rights.
And also it threatens our greatest ally as well.
Multiple Tomahawk, beautiful American-made Tomahawk missiles. When they dared, when these crazy Iranians didn't respect American sovereignty in Greater Persia. What's the real dividing line for you as a Republican between the parties on foreign policy? Because a lot of what our Democratic strategist here has shared about the need for enduring war in the Middle East and a robust national defense. I mean, strong national defense was just a byline for being a conservative. for much of the last 50 years. I mean, this is not exactly. I mean, your party is not exactly the party of Eisenhower's warning against a military-industrial complex. What's the real distinction in your mind as a Republican strategist with the Democratic Party's view of these wars? I seem to recall, when I was a kid, lots of stuff from, Gavin's progressive friends in Code Pink and MoveOn.org. They were very anti-war, but eventually they seemed to see the light with removing people like Gaddafi and intervening against Bashar al-Assad.
Oh, you're muted.
God damn it. Sorry. So what I was going to say, okay, this is the question that I knew would break me once we get to foreign policy, because holy shit, this is, I cannot wait to talk about what Gavin had to say. So, okay, as a Republican, here's the thing. Anytime your country enters into any sort of military conflict abroad, because that's pretty much always been the case for the United States, you're going to have a dividing line. You're going to have people that don't want it, and they don't want it either because they're pacifists and they don't believe that war solves anything, or they don't want it because they want to basically be more of an isolationist nation. And there was a twinge of that in Trump's presidency, not necessarily that he wanted to be an isolationist nation. It's just that he wasn't interested in engaging in what was happening abroad. He, wasn't opposed to activity that spoke to spreading democracy across the world, but he was very outspoken during George W. Bush's presidency when it came to why are we engaged in endless wars. And I do think that there was a persuasive element to him making those arguments, because there were people, in both the Republican and the Democratic Party, or, libertarians and independents too, that didn't want to be in perpetual war, because ultimately you're just doing more harm than you are good. You've lost sight over what your objective was. Anytime you're engaged in a 20-year war, you're going to lose sight of what that objective is. Now, that said, the Republican Party has always and will always maintain among its credentials that it is the party of national security. It is the party of diplomacy. It is the party of, being a strong actor in a global arena. We recognize that we are a superpower. Some would say that we are the superpower, and some would say that we are a superpower. Doesn't matter. The point is that the Republican Party has done better when it comes to foreign policy and foreign affairs than the Democratic Party has in the last several decades. You know that through the Obama presidency, you saw him stumble with Iran and the way he drew the infamous line in the sand, and they ran right over it, and then nothing happened as a result of that. Whereas you have someone like President Trump, who should have been credited and wasn't credited with the way he handled China. Because the one thing that the Chinese people respected was someone that they couldn't predict, and someone who wasn't going to back down. And he didn't get credit for that because the mainstream media couldn't find it, couldn't find any sort of decency to say this is something that he got right. So I think that the Republican Party, you're not going to see them running from the fact that, I don't remember the word you used, some Raytheon, whatever. I mean, you're right. Like, we're not ashamed of our military. We're not ashamed of military engagement. But what we do support is strong, smart, strategic engagement, and not just living in a perpetual war. That's just not something that we value. And we also understand that putting lives at risk for either the spreading of democracy or creating a more just situation somewhere else is not going to come without great cost.
And we are at 6:00. Masks off. Now, although, hold on. Before masks off, Gavin, I really want you, for my sake, just because I really want to see what it looks like, try your best faith approach with anything you want having to do with the Democratic Party.
Just anything?
Just anything, yeah. Just like whatever you would want to say, like to be devil's advocate for the good things that the Democratic Party has done without going into the extremes. Because again, the right has its extremes, the left has its extremes. So you could say that, yes, you could say maybe the inmates are running the asylum. You could make an argument for that. But at the same time, there are still, let's say, people who are not the inmates within the asylum.
No, and there are things that they're still proposing that aren't insane. I mean, if I'm just going to be grounded, I think, as people in the comments were talking about, I mean, obviously some Democrats are obviously still staunch supporters of, the social safety net, which some Republicans have gutted. So on that front, I think, there could be, there are some good things left in the Democrat Party platform, supporting, those that are struggling. I think sometimes, particularly when it comes to economic issues, I don't think their heart's always in the wrong place. I think sometimes their policies are a little counterintuitive, or they miss the bigger picture. For example, supporting workers while also, supporting policies like completely open borders, complete free trade, that kind of thing. But I do think that there are positions, particularly as it pertains to the social safety net, that are commendable and, should actually be, discussed more on the Republican side. I don't know if that was quasi character, quasi out of character. I don't know what it was.
And Super Iron Bob says, get Jessica to do the same. So,
Yeah.
Although I would say that your approach has been a lot more good faith than Gavin's was, if I'm being quite honest here.
I thought we had to fully embrace this. I wanted to get into character. I mean, I didn't know like that would help.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I thought it was an interesting approach. We have both kinds, so I think it's good to have a mixed bag here. So, Jessica.
Yeah. It's been an interesting exchange, just because, if anything, it's really difficult to, I think, go into, I mean, I hate to put it this way, but character, so to speak, because ultimately what you get, and what I was trying to prevent against, is going to a place where you're making a caricature of the other party, because both political parties are way more nuanced than that. And, it's complicated, because what you don't want to dismiss would be the things these parties get wrong. And you don't want to dismiss the way these individuals are making, or these parties are making progress. And that progress moves slowly, and you're trying to appease so many people. For the Republican Party, I do think, like, if I had to, I guess you're asking me to say something that's complimentary, like something that they're getting right. Their approach to foreign policy is not always wrong. And I do believe that the way the Republican Party approaches foreign affairs it's not untrue that it's misrepresented in the media. I do think that these conversations, of course, they're rooted in the values of a party, but you're still having to respond to what's happening in the immediate. And, I think that you have a lot of journalists who are both incredibly smart, but also a lot who are incredibly lazy, and they don't always do their research. So, I mean, I do think that things are way more complicated than the 30-second soundbite that you get in the media. Also, so I've been keeping up the best I can with the comments.
No, don't keep up with the comments.
Oh, no, I wanted to, because I'm always fascinated by just the misogyny that shows up.
Oh, no, don't say that.
Oh no, light it up, guys. I'm right here. So it is fascinating, because,
but they like you, though. They like you. I don't know.
I think that's debatable, but I do think that's a real thing, because, like, I'm all for, like, if you show up on someone's playground, you're going to play, like, there are the rules, and you show up and you're going to engage in, like, whatever the rules are. And, whatever, like, I don't think I deserve a free pass because I'm a woman, but I definitely think that people reveal a lot about themselves when they behave a certain way. And it's like, you're not, you're not operating on any higher level because you're making these jokes. You just kind of look ridiculous. And I go through this all the time, just on Twitter, right? Because if you can talk about politics, you're going to have unpopular opinions. But then also too, there's the meta shit where it's like, okay, maybe people feel threatened when there's someone who speaks about things more firmly than what they're used to. Like, women can be strong. I think that people don't always appreciate strong women. I think that these opinions can be confusing. I think that men often have the advantage when they're talking about these matters. And so it's been really fascinating, but I definitely told myself that this time I'd be watching the comments.
Boy.
I mean, I'm not mad about it. It is what it is. This is society. Like, doesn't matter. But I love this conversation. It's just that the problem is that these conversations are super, super nuanced, and you can't help but drift into the place of making a caricature of the other party. Like, I want to go back to something Gavin said, where he was talking about, Yes, my farts. Yeah, I see your chat. So anyway.
Oh no, the fart.
I didn't hear anything.
This is why the most important political position is that the internet was a mistake.
Oh, man. I don't know. I love the internet, but like anytime you have an
Let's not be
amazing,
too
Well, you
powerful
have to know
force.
the meme, the deep lore of the brat, and
So if
I mean, I love the internet, but you know, look, guys,
Gio.
yeah.
Sorry.
I think I have a way to sort of thread this needle. So I'd like to ask our now newly restored, masks off, fully themselves, Republican strategist Gavin Wax, Democratic strategist Jessica Deloach. So there's an interview that Bernie Sanders, bless his heart, had with Ezra Klein.
Big mistake right there.
Years ago. This was in 2014, and I'll refrain from doing the Bernie Sanders impression, although I do love doing that. Where Ezra Klein asks him, there's some who say that, in order to increase global equity, this, that, and the other thing, we should talk about sharply raising the amount of immigration we have in the United States, almost up to the point of open borders. And Gavin, you mentioned open borders and a commitment to free trade on the other side. And Bernie Sanders interrupts, and he said, I can't help myself. Open borders, that's a Koch brothers proposal. That's a right-wing proposal that would say essentially there is no United States of America. And I don't believe there's anyone who believes that. And, I can't help myself. It's such a great. He has since changed his position. His position is now, I think, a little bit more like Pete Buttigieg's. His position is a little bit more like, maybe the Democratic mainstream, which is that, we shouldn't be focused on exclusionary border security. We should actually be focused on having greater amounts of immigration. Free trade really is part of the Democratic plank now. And sometimes, there are wings within the Democratic Party or within the left-wing coalition that'll say, well, this is neoliberalism. This is corporatism. This is something that has nothing to do with the Democratic Party. Maybe even accusations of fixing bread prices. But on the right wing side, on the Republican side, the rest of that interview, Bernie Sanders is talking about youth unemployment in the United States. He's talking about the wages that are being earned by Black and Latino Americans. But this is something that also, impacts white Americans. And yet I find among the Republican Party a constant inability to actually embrace some of these more, some would say socialist, I would say populist, maybe left wing or less than capitalist perspectives. Because Bernie was making an anti-open borders argument. The most recent example of this I can think of is COVID relief. Lots and lots of right-wing voices currently saying on Twitter, currently saying in publications, well, the reason people aren't going back to work is because there's just too much darn COVID aid. And this strikes me as like absolutely bonkers. Where's the populism? I thought it's just like
maybe in my country that could work as an argument, but not in America. That's kind of ridiculous. I mean,
yeah. Which I mean, for both of our strategists, which party wants to get the most radical about improving the material conditions of life for Americans, and what is the actual locus of that, right? Because in some sense, if you were to just go whole hog on COVID relief and say, $2,000 a month every month, I think Rashida Tlaib or Ilhan Omar proposed something like that. That would substantially benefit a lot of people, including people who are illegal aliens who just happen to be in this country. On the other hand, if you were to say something like, let's greatly restrict the access to the American labor markets, this would make things very, very difficult for small business owners. This would make things very, very difficult for a lot of enterprises whose owners and operators form the backbone of the Republican Party. And yet it would also keep out a lot of people, a lot of immigrant origin people who tend to vote Democratic. And so I wonder, there's this gun on the floor and you're both at opposite sides of the room. Like, who's really just going to go and scramble and get it? That's what I don't see like a coherent strategy from either party on this question.
Well, so I would argue, and this is where I kind of feel sorry for Lev, because it would be more advantageous to this conversation if I were a lot more left wing, if I were a lot more tethered to, this is what it means to be a Democrat, and I'm just like 100% through and through, on on the juice or whatever. And I'm not. And part of it is just because if you want to act in good faith, then number one, you have to admit to yourself that neither major party gets it right. You come into government with a big idea, and then that big idea is inevitably going to be watered down. And it's watered down, like the first front is, well, what can we afford? And then the floodgates are open where it's like, well, if we're going to pay for this, then we should pay for this. And then, then it gets further convoluted when people are like, well, the money has to come from somewhere, right? Because you don't want the federal government telling the state government what it can and can't do with its money, because it can only mandate so much. And then you have a situation where other industries will say, like, for instance, if you're just talking about highways, you're talking about infrastructure, and you want to hold the trucking industry accountable because of the wear and tear on roads. Well, they're inevitably going to push back on some of that. You see countries across the world that have introduced smart technologies that, take everyday human activities, and they find ways to generate good, right? So like, I forget if it's Israel or what, but there are these mechanisms on interstates where you put these devices in that create like as cars drive over it, there's a lot of solar energy or energy that is generated that's then used to power other facilities in these surrounding towns. Well, then you would think to yourself, we have so much interstate in the United States alone. Why aren't we doing that? Why is it that we don't engage in the use of smart technologies that could ultimately, lessen financial burdens on, for everybody across the country, instead of making them, be a prisoner to a particular energy system where they have, very few, if any, other options to say, well, I would rather purchase my energy supply from you instead of being relegated to just one. Well, they're all like, you're basically trapping people into certain costs that could be reduced if we engaged in smarter technologies. You don't see either major party saying in a serious way, this is what we want. Basically, what you get is a talking point on high, like, let's go ahead and implement, like, let's shoot for the moon and have this great technology, but then nothing comes of it ever. Because these conversations,
it sells when you make a big announcement, and yeah.
Correct. And it's all bullshit, because basically what you have are a lot of people who are like, not like they have the high level talking points, but then when it comes to what it takes to actually make these things happen, it's just not happening. And this is why people can't stand government. They can't stand the shit. And so it's really hard for me to sit here and pretend like either major party's getting it right. I mean, I appreciate the people who put forth good ideas, but then, for instance, you mentioned Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. So, okay, you've just chosen the two people who are a lightning rod in the Republican Party because of their views on other issues, so that you've already decreased the legitimacy there. And then the Democratic Party, the other challenge here is this: the Democratic Party has the majority it has because of the number of more moderate Democrats that were elected to office. And I'm not saying that to dismiss any of like the DSA leanings or the more liberal members of the party, because they have a place in it too. It's a huge tent, but they don't make up the majority of elected Democratic representation, right? But they still have a huge voice.
But isn't like AOC girl bossing it like the way of the future?
No, man. I mean, here's the thing. AOC is a force, like she's a force all on her own. And she has a lot of, she's incredibly persuasive, incredibly popular. She sticks her neck out in ways that other Democrats don't. And that's great and everything, but she still gets accused of not sticking her neck out too far. You can't take AOC and drop her in rural Mississippi and expect the same outcome. That's just not going to happen.
Well, I'm curious from Gavin's point of view, how do you see things going in the Democrat Party right now regarding what Jessica just talked about?
Well, I wanted to touch on briefly, or maybe not briefly, what Indian brought up. I think it's an interesting point, interesting question. There is a transition politically going on. I think we're in the 6th party system, and it's the longest party system we've had in the United States. We probably should be in the 7th. And a lot of these issues about, the different planks of the parties and how Bernie used to believe in one thing, now he shifted to a more neoliberal perspective, and how there were many more neoliberals in the Republican Party who are now shifting in a more populist direction, particularly on economics. I think Indian mentioned, well, who's gonna jump for the scraps. I think if anyone's going to make the full out transition, it's going to cost them a lot of votes, and they're going to bleed in the short term while the realignment happens. And I think, I think both parties are trying to weave their way through that. I think you saw with Trump, he was bringing up immigration restrictionism, he was bringing up protectionism, while he was also still towing the line as it came to, regulations, corporate tax cuts, et cetera, because he was trying to play both sides. He was trying to keep the Chamber of Commerce happy. He was trying to keep the small business owners, who are the donor backbone of the party, happy, while also transitioning to win over, the white working class who have been abandoned by the Democrat Party. And obviously that kind of blending of positions failed because he wasn't able to get elected. Maybe there was a variety of other reasons for that, but that was the position he was trying to take. His advisors were trying to take, people like Bannon, et cetera. They were trying to push the Republican Party in that direction, in a more populist direction, where they would cede on some issues of economics from the old fusionist model, which was, cultural conservatism and economic neoliberalism. Now they're trying to redefine a new fusionism. I think the Democrats, on the other hand, have been much more rapid in terms of how they've shifted, and even people like Bernie have shifted completely from the Ezra Klein interview that Indian mentioned. It showed that at one point the populist left was in favor of trade restrictions, was in favor of immigration restrictions, was sort of in this populist mold, a little nationalistic on some economic issues, and they've completely dropped that because the party has decided it's going to become, and when I say the party, I really do mean the leadership and those really driving the energy of the party. They have decided to drop a lot of these issues that once appealed to their union base in favor of this new sort of social focused, cultural focused, woke focused, social justice causes, which has won them, the more college educated white voters, more cosmopolitan voters, more suburban voters, but they've certainly bled to a huge extent voters in the more traditional Rust Belt working class towns. I also think that we're starting to see them bleed, even in terms of working class Hispanics who do share a lot of economic and cultural interests with white working class voters. And I think Trump was starting that trend where we were seeing working class Hispanic males start to shift to the Republican Party. Now, the question is, will the Republican Party take up this new change and run with it and continue to, expedite that process? I don't know. I think there is a civil war going on in the party, even though the one side definitely dominates in terms of the grassroots and the party constituents. There are the mechanisms of the party that keep a lot of their voices suppressed. So it's weird.
I also want to get to Jessica real quick. I just want to make sure, Jessica, do you agree with Gavin's assessment of the Democratic Party as far as that new wing of it, which you could say is on the fringes? Still, there has to be a certain amount of lip service that is given to the fringes for the sake of keeping some kind of order going on. Or would you disagree?
No, I don't think that's too far off, because anytime, just take the Democratic Party or any party that has an identity crisis, going on within itself, because the Republican Party and the Democratic Party are both going through that right now in the United States. So, when you have a particular strain of Democrat or Republican that leads the party and is the majority makeup of the party, but you have a loud minority, you can't ignore it. It's wrong to ignore it. It exists because there's a political will for it within the country. So if you want to be respectful of the totality of what makes up the Democratic Party, you don't ignore it. You listen. Unfortunately, it takes a long time for people to take minorities seriously. And I think the Democrats, it would be incredibly foolish for the Democrats to not pay attention to a lesson that was learned through the rise of the Tea Party. So the Tea Party was interesting because it was founded by corporate interest, but these corporate interests were able to both uncover and manufacture the existence of a particular type of outrage. But what ended up happening was that a party, this very powerful entity, formed as a result of that, but it still had a lot of corporate backing. But the Republican Party was smart to say, if you're just talking I'm just talking strategy here. I'm not saying right or wrong, but they were smart to say, let's mobilize these people. You feed the beast, and eventually the beast starts feeding itself. And it is particularly
or the beast starts feeding on you, though. Or the beast starts feeding on you, both. Like the hyenas in Lion King. You remember the Lion King?
Yes. No, it does both. It's just that with the Republican Party, you know, it is having to answer to this more far right contingent. So if the Democratic Party looks at that dynamic, you shouldn't get caught up on, oh, well, it's not the same thing. No, that's not the point. The point is when you have a loud minority, if you don't listen to it, you're going to have a problem later down the road.
Yeah.
Well, Glasscake pointed out earlier on, the great animator, by the way, from Britain, Glasscake, he said, and I've encountered this many times, even I remember when these communists called up my family to threaten their lives when we had one of them on the show, and I was talking about the connections they had with the Russian government.
That was
so
funny.
Anyway, yeah. Well, funny for you. Anyway, when they called up, they said that they hate Biden, that they hate the mainstream Democrat, they hate Obama. And this seems to be a resounding element within a lot of the far left people, that unlike, let's say, the more, and Gavin, you can tell me if this is the case, like unlike the more populistic people on the right, who, they may not get along with everybody in the Republican Party, not with Turtle Man, for example, but still they have sort of a base which, certain parts of it may go a little bit more extreme, but it still manages to keep itself within a certain kind of structure. But here, there seems to be just like absolute, from the people who are far left who I've spoken with, absolute hatred towards what they see as the DNC machine, for lack of a better word, that they don't want anything to do with it, that they want to overthrow it.
Which is strange, though, because then the DNC has been much more malleable to the demands, the wishes, and the views of this minority politically that you're speaking of than the RNC has. And I do agree with how you're outlining it. It is interesting because the Republicans, their kind of dissident populist right wing, it obviously brought Trump about, but at the same time, the RNC co-opted his administration. They always hated his base. They hated what he stood for.
They worked through his nephew to basically derail him at all turns.
Correct. And then they'll take on some of the rhetoric, but they haven't really changed. I would argue the Democrat Party has fundamentally changed. So it is interesting that this far left contingent that rejects the political process, rejects the DNC, they've ironically been a lot more successful, if they want to see it or not, in shifting the Democrat Party, even on the margins in their view, and from everyone else, it might seem like a massive change. Maybe they only see it as the margins, but they have shifted the party a lot more successfully through their strategy. But I would also argue that there is a much broader left than what you're saying. I mean, there is that far left contingent that won't engage in the political process and is disgusted, but there is the DSA, there is the Justice Dems, there are a lot of institutional there is a lot of institutional infrastructure for the left that has been working, that has been well funded, that has been a machine to take over the Democrat Party. You saw it happen in Nevada, where the DSA took over the Democrat Party there, the party of Harry Reid. So it's happening. It is ongoing, and I think it's a lot more successful than anything on the right.
There's a view. Well, in fairness to Jessica, so I hear this from Republicans because I spend more time with them. Their view is that, Ilhan Omar, and, I brought up Ilhan Omar only because she proposed the $2,000 a month thing.
Yeah.
Their view of the Democratic Party, I don't even say Democrat Party. I'm revealing my leftist sympathies. Their view is that it's been wholly captured by these woke Maoists. They're sharpening the bayonet.
Cultural Marxists, yeah.
Right, and it's like, there's just a straight line of descent from, the Secret Six and the Weathermen to Barack Obama. It's just
right.
It's communist all the way down. But then on the Democratic side, they have this view that, okay, well, it's just Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's turtles all the way down. It's like these people.
It's like Boebert. It's Sarah Palin all over again.
Coming, right?
But you guys, I just want to say, I mean, it's really I think it's kind of critical to acknowledge one big thing here. So I want to go, so Gavin made this point where he was talking about the DNC being held hostage basically by these people. It's an exaggeration, but they've been more responsive. Here's the reality. If you follow Democratic Party politics, you're going to see these different things emerge, where we talked about what happened in Nevada, with the DSA. Yeah, that's one thing. That's not something that you're going to see happening in states across the country. There's also, unless you worked in state level party politics, like inter-party politics, it's not easy to see how something like that can happen. It actually can happen pretty easily when the state is primed to do it, because this shit is unsophisticated when it comes to that level. I mean, I'm not kidding. Like when it comes to decisions that are made in the state, and I say this as a person who's worked for a statewide Democratic Party in the South. Basically what happens is this: you've got state committees and executive committees. Anybody from whatever district they live in can run they can run for an office to be a state committee member or a statewide officer or whatever. And it's all a popularity contest, okay? Then those people get to make decisions about what happens on a state party level. A lot of Democrats don't give a shit about statewide political parties. They don't care. There's the role that political parties play in American politics. And when I say political parties, I mean like these headquarters in each state. It is not what it used to be. The outsized voice and the outsized influence in American politics comes from corporations. It comes from social interest. It comes from wherever the money is. People are following the money. There's so little power concentrated in these entities that still have this weird influence. And I think that's incredibly important to say, because I can't tell you what the Democratic Party would have looked like if there would have been a Club for Growth, Americans for Prosperity contingent of it. Like, you can make your jokes about Soros and all that, but it's just not the same thing. Like, they haven't had that happen yet. But what is going on is, the DSA and its growing interest. And I think it's important to put these things into context, because in some ways you cannot compare the Republican Party and the Democratic Party and what they're going through right now. And it is important. Like, I hear what you're saying about, oh, well, it's Marjorie Taylor Greene, it's Lauren Boebert, blah, blah, blah. They're having their day in the sun the same way Michelle Bachmann had hers forever ago, and Sarah Palin. I think that Mitch McConnell, whether you like him or not, is an incredibly skilled politician. That dude knows how to choose his battles, doesn't give a shit about anybody but what his bottom line is, and he'll play the game.
I agree. He cares about his little chamber, and anything outside of that chamber he doesn't. And he was good. He was a good political maneuvering, but obviously he lost the Senate and he made some wrong choices there. But I will just say, I mean, obviously every state is different. I'm sure the Democrat Party in the South is very different, but I cited Nevada. It's happened in New York with the congressional delegation, AOC, and everyone is basically calling the shot.
How many members of Congress do you have from New York?
What are you talking about?
How many members of Congress do you have from New York? No, just overall.
What is it, like a 20-something delegation?
And how many of them are Democrats?
Majority.
And then the next question is, how many of them actually practice the same values that you see coming from AOC and Oklahoma, but AOC? You don't.
Another point is just the culture and the economic issues. I think the leadership of the Democrat Party, much like the leadership of the Republican Party, is very much one and the same in terms of their neoliberal kind of globalist.
Yeah, that's what someone said.
Economics, but culturally, they have kind of made a bargain with the left to basically fully embrace far left social and cultural issues.
This could be said of the Republican Party also, right?
That's what
I think there's parallels.
That's the point, of course, is that
that's what I was trying to bring up with, like, the right has this caricature view of the left. I think the left often has this caricature view of the right via the party mediation, where, like, I personally don't believe that Rashida Tlaib or Marjorie Taylor Greene are going to define an important axis of the future for these parties. On the other hand, these are individual personalities. These are not like platforms. It's the actual meat and potatoes issue that someone is trying to serve that's more interesting to me. Like in the 80s, there was this guy called Gary Hart, and Gary Hart was a very liberal Democrat. He was like openly for abortion and gay marriage in the 1980s. Fucking lunatic, right? He sponsored this bill called crazy positions to take, obviously. At any time. He sponsored this bill called the Semiconductor something Protection Act with a Republican senator. Exactly, Charles Mathias, Chip Mathias. This was a bill that was basically to say, look, if you design microchips in a certain way, that is IP, that's protected, and you can't have foreign companies just dumping their shit in the U.S. for cheap, right? What party today is that bill more likely to come out of?
Republicans.
Is it?
We don't know.
Oh yeah, you're right. You can get the Silicon Valley. Like, if you get them to hate Silicon Valley enough, maybe. But you're right. Yeah, it's hardware, so Yeah, the Republicans probably.
And this is why excuse me, I'm being very uncouth, and I'm eating while I'm speaking to you people. But like this is why.
Oh,
Like,
you're not the only one.
yeah, good.
That was a good steak.
I'll wait till after your stream because
Yeah.
I just have
Because Gio's a gentleman,
no
unlike me.
concentration.
Well, I mean, Gio is the eternal gentleman. I haven't even once said open thoughts, show Bobs. So this is why like I'm not totally convinced that these are inter-party fights. They are played through the turf of political campaigns. They are played through elections, but I'm not really convinced that these are that there are two different parties that are coming at one another. I think there are two different political tendencies, and that's why you have these internal civil wars within these parties. And so what I would ask, both our Republican and Democratic strategists now fully restored, into their proper self. What would it take for you to not be part of the party apparatus anymore? What would it take for you to go just like full on third party? Yeah, and I know there's criticism, but you're never one with a third party. It's a crazy thing to do. But what would it take, at least locally, regionally? What are the issues where they're like, they're undervoted primaries, they're undervoted school board districts, maybe, like they're places where other candidates can win. What would it take for you to start, cooperating with people, quote, across the aisle on like, certain issues? Like, what are those issues? Where are the things where you see like some amount of overlap with people who, in 2014, they're Bernie Sanders being anti-immigration or something and calling open borders far right. Where is the richest field for collaboration in a formal political sense, but just absent these parties?
But you kind of, the first part of what you said seemed like, what would it take for you to leave the party and join a third party or a separate party?
Well, to collaborate without like, say, the superstructure of these parties, whether that takes the form of a third party or not.
I did it, and we did it with this Reoccupy movement. I met a lot of people from the DSA. I met a lot of people down there that were, very much economically left, and they thought some of the issues culturally and socially had kind of gone a little crazy, and they'd started to miss the plot in terms of these bigger issues. So I'm open to doing it. I'm open to working outside of the party apparatus. The problem is I feel like things have become very tribalistic, and everyone's moved into their camps, and they've been forced to accept kind of the entire platform or none of it. I also think the third party question is interesting. I think we are seeing changes in voting laws across the country. Here in New York, they passed like IRV, and there's talk about changing voting laws across the country. If there ever was a way to change the voting system where it wasn't first past the post, and it would allow multiple parties to form, I think that would make American politics more interesting, and I would be fine with leaving the Republican Party. I think the way we have this two-party system set up now is there's a lot of internal factions, there's a lot of internal fighting, and it kind of slows down a lot of political change and transition that would be happening much more rapidly in a multi-party system. That's what we're seeing with Trump and this populist right. They would already be the main party if it weren't for this kind of two-party first past the post structure. So if anything were to change like that at the local level, then I think people like me and others would definitely be more inclined to, break ranks from the party structure and change it. But within the party structure, I would love to work with populist Dems who are, maybe we don't agree necessarily on social issues. Maybe we agree on foreign policy. Maybe we agree on economic issues. I think that would be a starting point. But I think things have become so divided and the political divides and the dichotomy between the two parties so wide. It's becoming more and more difficult to do that and have that cross-partisan union. But I actually saw something recently from John Tester and Agnes King and Josh Hawley talking about a bill to stop the consolidation of these ranches, and that was leading to the rise in the price of meat. So there is stuff happening at the federal level and kind of like these niche issues that aren't really headlines, and it's bringing some people together, some individual senators and reps, but it's kind of few and far between.
We need a red-brown alliance.
I want to ask Apex and Geo as well, as far as even though I'm not sure if your politics are both exactly the same, but there is something. Oh, Indian Bronson just disappeared here. Hopefully he'll
said
be
he
back
had to
later.
go.
Oh,
yeah, he had to
okay.
run.
Yeah,
yes, well, I wish Indian Bronson the very best.
Yep.
I just want. Okay,
thank
so
you, my friend,
Geo,
for coming.
yes, thank you so much, Indian Bronson. So Geo and Apex.
Well, wait,
Jessica
has to answer the question first because I have a bigger point. But
okay.
So for me, okay, I am super glad that Gavin used the word tribal because things have become so tribal. It's disgusting. I think about this a lot. And, one question I get stuck on is it true that as you get older, you become a little bit more moderate or conservative in your views? I grew up in a pretty conservative place that Democrats just happened to hold for a long time. I don't know. I've always struggled to
as Southern Belle.
I don't really. One thing I don't identify with is just being completely full on tethered to the rhetoric espoused by one party. I'm not interested in that. I can't think of a politician that I've ever just been totally head over heels for that I think is just infallible and so wonderful that I put up on a pedestal. I've never had that experience. When I think about what it would take to leave the party, some of that's already playing out for me. So one, I absolutely cannot stand how nepotistic politics is. I cannot stand the ruling class that governs over both major political parties, where you have a finite number of people who basically play musical chairs with a number of positions. And what that tells you is that instead of valuing people who spend their lives becoming experts in fields, who can be, really elevated to a position where they can do some good for the country. Instead, these jobs are kind of either given out as favors to someone else or someone who's just lesser in experience and intelligence, or maybe they aren't as connected, therefore they don't qualify. I can't stand it. I also don't like how dishonest both major political parties can be, because it is, because politics is the name of the game. It's a zero-sum game, and the zero-sum game is what undermines success. It undermines progress overall. If I were to leave the Democratic Party, I wouldn't be leaving it to go to any other political party. I would have no interest in that, because what draws me to a major political party is the fact that major political parties have a particular level of organization. There's power there. There is influence. You have to have all of those things to be able to, to have some success under your belt, and in being able to reach out to larger coalitions of people. But I find myself more interested in analyzing the way these political parties work. I particularly have an interest in disinformation and misinformation, and how that's just totally changed. It's been weaponized, and it's, has changed our political landscape. I wouldn't be surprised at all if I disassociated completely from engaging full on with a major political party in exchange for looking at the effect that these parties have overall on the country. And I mean, I totally see that happening, actually, for myself. That doesn't mean that I'm not passionate, but...
Well, this ties into the question that I rudely wanted to ask, because I completely forgot that you did not answer that question, which now you did, and I'm very thankful for that. So here's my question that ties into this. Mm-hmm. When it comes to, let's say, experts that people look at, like if you're talking about all kinds of fake news out there, the concern, I think, and I don't want to speak for Geo and Apex, but this would be kind of a preface if Geo and Apex want to expand on this, that what a lot of people online today are concerned, not just with the rampant censorship that's going on, but also as far as who gets to be the voice that says what is true and what is not true, and what is the legitimacy that certain groups or figures would have as far as telling people what is the reality and what is not. What they may be afraid that's going to happen in the future is people will start looking at China as a good example of how to manage a whole lot of people, a whole lot of dissenting opinions on the internet, and we end up living in a technocracy where the kind of freedoms that we both, regardless of whether we're Democrats or Republicans or neither, happen to enjoy, are going to start being eroded away. Now, the difference between maybe me and Geo, and I'm not sure about Apex, but the difference would be in the solutions, because I think, Geo, you would see certain systems that have worked before, like more traditional base societies, as being the answer. My thing is, I'm not sure we're able to ever go back to that just by the virtue of living in a technologically advanced time. But still, I was wondering if you can elucidate a little bit more about, like, what is the biggest fear that I think, especially, let's say, from the Democratic Party, although not exclusive to it, that people within your circle, Geo, and your circle, Apex, would see? Like, what is the big bad, the big fear, the big nightmare that people don't want to exist in?
Apex, you go ahead. maybe you want to take that one because you're
And
American.
everybody subscribe. Oh, and by the way, we do have a super chat from Super Iron Bob that I think connects to this somewhat, and that's for 20 smackaroos. And he says, the Amazon mindfulness box is the peak ironic PMC empathy for the working class. It is a solution for the PMC would enjoy offer to the working class that would not enjoy it like the PMC does. Then he also sent $2 and says shit posting is an art, which it is. I agree.
Even the language they use about like recharging your batteries. I know it's like an offhand phrase, but that's just like the total like depersonalization, the inframing of the human worker.
But also the reason that I mention it is I want to stray away from talking about cancel culture or woke. Like we get it, we get that stuff.
No. But here's the thing: before Apex goes on, to give you Jessica asked for context before. Oh, by the way, Godward podcast. I don't really have a favorite novel. It's a toss up between the first two books of In Search of Lost Time and Siddhartha by Herman Hesse. And The Road. The Road's probably like one of my favorites. To give context, okay, so two things. One, the right has always kind of been a bit more accepting, believe it or not, in terms of allies or sort of strange bedfellows. The reason I say this is because a lot of like the DSA cell, Varso cell people, the fucking Carl Beegers of the world, they talk about this red-brown alliance thing, which is at least implicitly kind of true in the sense that there's a lot of disenfranchised podcasters who are more economically leftist in terms of being either explicitly Marxist or socialist, but who hate like all of the woke stuff. So there's your Red Scare, your Amy Teresa's, your Glenn Greenwald's. There's also, I would say, a huge contingent of radical feminists, like second wave people, who are trying to reenact the 1980s division of like the Reaganites going after pornography with the Radfems, with the Dworkin and the McKinnites, which I think is pretty good. I mean, I'm friends with a lot of these people. People say I shouldn't be. But another problem is, number two, the biggest influencers in the modern left, at least in terms of America, is two things. The DSA and BreadTube. They usually have an alliance with each other. What you're seeing now is they're explicitly going after old school economic leftists and Marxists. They always talk about tankies, how the Leninist tankies are evil, and how they're reactionary, quote unquote. And you also have some of the people who, at least in part, used to be Marxist, like Vaush, like the nephew. What's the guy's name? Hassan Piker. Now they're going after more explicitly economically left-wing people, and they're adopting more of a neoliberal stance because now they have a position of influence. Of course, as you know, Hassan Piker on Twitch streams with AOC and all that crap. So they're starting to have this sort of, the difference being is that on the right, there's not this apparatus of brutal ideological eugenics in terms of just totally canceling people and like pushing them out. I mean, it kind of does happen, but let's face it. If you say enough funny memes and if you say you hate wokeness, then you're friends with us. We're kissing cousins. There you go. Whereas on the left, there tends to be a bit more of a apparatus, like because they're in a lot of ways in forms of institutional power that isn't explicitly political in terms of cultural power. They have an ability to basically cancel whoever they want to that isn't towing the line. So just for that fact, I think we're going to see a lot more of this red-brown alliance type of thing, whether you want to call it that. I know it's a term of derision because they're applying the brown shirts with the red shirts, right? So, but maybe Apex, you are a man of this red-brown alliance as well, because you seem to not find a home among anybody. So, yeah.
And also,
yeah,
Apex, I want to make sure that you... Yes, go on.
No, Lev, continue.
I want to make sure that you also get to answer the question about what is this worst case scenario.
Oh,
that's
yeah,
in
that.
A lot of that's in the minds of a lot of people who are within Geo's circle and within your circle, just like if we can distill it into some kind of package to present in front of Jessica and to say, like, Jessica, this is the thing that these guys are worried about, and I would love to get, to address it somehow so that it doesn't feel like it's just talking in a circle, within these specific communities.
Certainly. So I'm going to just kind of, respond to Gio a little bit about the red-brown thing, and then we'll go on to the question, which it'll probably take a bit of time to respond to, the worst case scenario, but I'll do my best to not, go on and ramble. So in terms of the red-brown alliance side, Gio is correct. I politically homeless over here. But I think that it's not that I think that the right possesses more of some kind of innate personality trait that makes them more open to, having allies across the spectrum. I mean, let's be real here. The dissident right on Twitter sometimes looks cattier than my little sister and her friends were in middle school. This is not they're not the single most tolerant people out there. But
it depends who you're talking about. Like, I know, like, some of the bigger voices in Frog Twitter.
Yeah, like your particular mini part of the circle, the one that we tend to run in the most, definitely is more laid back. But there's
the average graper that goes on about the holes and the no e-girls and all that crap. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So basically,
or people who are legitimate schizophrenics, but that's it's another story.
Yeah. So the problem, of course, is that what you have is you have this kind of dominant center, which for now is composed mostly of people who are nominally on the left. So I was for a very long time, I was that leftist that Lev was talking about, who just kind of said, I'm not going to compete for pittances from either party. I don't care. I'm not going to get involved. None of this matters. But you get to this point where you kind of get excommunicated from that dominant center much more quickly. And so what you end up getting is you have these strange bedfellows. And I don't know how long it's going to last. And if you push on them a little bit, you see the schisms underneath the surface of, okay, maybe you both don't like something, but if you then try to ask two people, where does this bad thing come from? So I recently got into a whole thing with some people about, what is the source of wokeness? Let alone the fact that most people define wokeness in a variety of different ways, but where does it come from? Does it come from the government? Does it come from capitalism? Does it come from a secret Marxist conspiracy? What is it? And so the schisms are there. I think it's more of an allegiance of convenience than anything. But yeah, I do think that the right in general is at least for now more welcoming overall.
But isn't the question about welcoming of who? Sorry to interrupt. I like the point you're making, but doesn't the question become
of who?
Yes. Right? Because wokeness is a circular firing squad.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
No, I agree. I think that the problem, what I would say that they're welcoming of is, I would say that when you have this dominant center, which I will broadly define as, and Lev, I promise not to go off onto one of my liberalism rants, but I will broadly define as a group of people or the ideology that says that self-responsibility and autonomy are the guiding virtues. You see it played out in a variety of social and economic contexts. And I think that this center a lot of people are aligned with it. I think that a lot of people across both parties are aligned with it. I think you've got the business conservatives and much of the Democratic Party and this context. And so when we're looking at who's being welcomed, I think that in a lot of cases, you're getting people who are, questioning the experts of the age. I would never have imagined that Glenn Greenwald would be considered anywhere near this this sphere at any point in time.
That's
I mean, and it's weird. So so when I'm looking at welcoming, I think it's difficult to claim that there is an ideology that is being welcomed, as more of just kind of a general disposition of skepticism towards the dominant institutions of the time. So whether that is,
I think the problem being is that a lot of people on our side, they tend to worship the cathedral as God rather than worshiping God itself, himself. So it's like, that's the big problem.
Wait, the cathedral, Jessica, do you know what Gio means by the cathedral?
I'm going to ask for clarification. I don't want to assume anything. Gio, what do you mean?
Okay, it's like the Moldbug, Curtis Yarvin concept of network power among various institutions. I mean, it's a whole, he has a whole like schizo chart where he like levels it out. But basically, like the big problem is that a lot of people who came out of neo-reaction, they like tended to like worship the cathedral in some like implicit backhanded way of saying, why can't we run it? Why can't we take the Leviathan Cthulhu and like run it, with our own ends? So that was like, that's my point. Like, sorry, I'm reading this thing. I believe it was Oren McIntyre, a good friend, that said they worship it like God rather than just worshiping God. So that's kind of true. I mean, that's.
But when it comes to the nightmare scenario, that I would say maybe partially associated with the cathedral. Well, Apex. How would you describe that nightmare scenario? And I know, like, you may be more leftwards than Gio is and Gavin is, but how would you describe it? And I would love for Gavin to also get some input in this as well. But Apex, go for it.
So I'll actually describe the nightmare scenario from a more leftist perspective, and that is that the social movements and the social movements will take precedence over the economic movements. Not that the social movements are necessarily bad, but that the prominence they take means that you end up simply entrenching this system that appears to want to dissolve anything it cannot take a profit out of. So it wants to commodify everything. It wants to objectify everything. And really, that the nightmare scenario is that unwittingly or wittingly, one of the major parties, and especially the more powerful Democratic Party, who they control a little bit more of the dominant institutions when it comes to socializing, when it comes to the media, education, that this group, whether wittingly or unwittingly, perpetuates an ideology that ends up demanding the complete atomization of individuals, where every single relationship we have, this emphasis on, this paper thin ethic of you can do whatever you want as long as it doesn't harm anyone, as long as there's consent. When you start looking at what that does, what it does is that every single relationship, every single engagement begins to become governed by this law of utility, where we stop seeing other people as full people and we start seeing them as instruments and tools to our own autonomous pleasure or whatever it is. And so the nightmare scenario is that one or both of the parties accept this. I mean, these tendencies spread across parties, but for a long time at least, the Democrats possessed a pretty substantial pro-worker movement, and the Republicans possessed a pretty substantial socially conservative movement. And these movements at least acted as counterweights, very imperfect ones, but they acted as counterweights. And I see over the last, 10, 15, 20 years is a gradual almost abandonment of these things, where the Democrats are becoming less associated with labor, less associated with helping workers, and the Republicans appear like they'll pay lip service to the conservatism, but they appear to really only care about cutting taxes for big business. And in that sense, you almost have both parties working towards this: we are going to dissolve everything that makes life worth living at the altar of utility, at the altar of capital. That's really the nightmare scenario.
Well, Gavin's been as patient as a saint. I would love for him to respond first, if that's okay. Gavin, what do you think of Apex's view here? And don't forget to unmute. And everybody subscribe while Gavin is unmuting. There we go.
Sorry, and I tuned in and out, so I didn't get to hear the full argument and the positions outlined, so I apologize about that. But I did think he made an interesting point with the divisions of the party, one being more pro-labor, one being more pro, traditionalism, social conservatism, and those being a counterbalance to each other. I think that's a very interesting point. Obviously, it wasn't perfect, but I certainly think that was interesting. And I think just the broader issue we're starting to face is that, at least in my mind, we're having one party that is embracing policies that are fundamentally anti-labor, and they're also fundamentally anti-tradition and social values, social conservatism, while the other party that is supposed to be standing up for at least one of those issues, whether socially conservative issues, or at least one faction would also like to be more pro-labor, the populist right, that other party is certainly not stepping up to the plate and fulfilling its role as an institution to do that. So I think that's why we're seeing a lot of issues here, that there is really no party anymore that is representing the issues of labor, that's representing the issues even of social conservatives. I think both parties have been fully co-opted. Their leaderships have been fully co-opted. They're one and the same. And that counterbalance that Apex was discussing is, even if it wasn't perfect at one point, is completely out the window. And I think, this is one of many issues, or one of many variables that's leading to all our current issues. And, it's sad to see.
I want to make sure we get to Jessa. I want to make sure we get to Jessa's response, because I know you have to go, Jessica. But I would love to get your response to Apex's statement as well, specifically when it comes to that root point. Like, let's forget about parties for a second. Just that root concern that he has with this atomization. How do you see? Do you agree with him first off? And if so, do you see a solution to this?
Okay, there's been a lot talked about, so I'm trying to put this question into context. I mean, what part of it exactly do you want me to answer? I mean, are we talking like transcend party?
Okay, so I consider myself to be a liberal, a classic liberal,
Yeah.
and I know that some people hate that over here, but that's fine with me. But I really want to play devil's advocate for the concern that Apex sees with the let everybody do whatever they want to type of system, that he sees that as leading to a lot of these problems that we have today, and even more so some atomization that may happen in the future with more technology down the road. That, I think, is that the root, Apex, or am I correct there?
Yeah, I think that's
okay.
Sufficiently fair. Yeah.
I mean, I think that humans are inclined. You have people who are inclined to be followers and people who are inclined to lead. And I think that the people who are inclined to lead are fewer in number than those who are inclined to follow. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong just on a base level of being a follower or a leader. But I think that this idea that there's ever going to be a free-for-all where people are just allowed to live their lives and be unencumbered by other people who seek power and seek to manipulate is just not going to happen. That just defies human nature. And I think that, the savviest people are the ones who want to lead or really control, but they project a different image than that. On a higher level, they find ways to manipulate other people to get them to do their bidding for them, which is basically what political parties do. They inspire people to then carry a line, to toe a line, to ostracize people who don't believe the same way they do. It's just like large scale control through manipulation and very few people pulling the levers. I know that we were talking earlier about wokeness. And when we were, cancel culture is complicated because you have to ask yourself, how effective is it? Who actually gets canceled? What does it mean to be canceled? Harvey Weinstein is one example of that, but he's not the best example. Is it long lasting? What happens when people start rejecting it? Which is something that we're already starting to see. A lot of people are like, cancel me, I don't give a shit. You can't cancel me if I don't care. That's a real thing. So I just think that so much of this it's all about power. Everything is rooted in power. And so it's hard to live your life unencumbered when you have systems at play that are so big that even if you want to be left out of all of that, you can't. It's insidious. It finds a way to get into your life and you can't really escape it. So then you ask yourself, do I take myself off the board and just don't play at all? Or do I find a way to play? Do I go about this third way, as so many people have been talking about, where it's like, okay, can I buck the system and, be on the fringes? But by accepting a place on the fringe, am I still basically, unilaterally disarming myself? Because then it comes down to pride and it comes down to values where you're like, okay, is it messed up to engage in a system that I don't fully believe in on the off chance that I'm able to influence it when it's so much bigger than me? I mean, this sounds very cynical, very pessimistic, but these are things that I really wrestle with. So, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question.
For me, and I'm not going to keep you long. I just want to say that for me, it goes back to what is the alternative that we have right now when it comes to some people think, well, maybe if a dictator comes in, they're going to set things right and everything's going to be just like it was before. I don't think that would ever work the way that people think that would work. So really, it's a weird thing. I don't know what to do about the situation of this social isolation, this when you give people the freedom to do whatever they want. I mean, personally, I think some people may do whatever they want for a while, and then maybe they're going to chill out and decide, you know what, maybe it's better to do something that, I don't know, my ancestors were doing, so I'm going to do that. Now, at least I have the opportunity to try. At least I have the opportunity. Nobody's restricting me, so maybe a lot of the things we're seeing right now is from that over-restriction that was put on before. I could be wrong about that. That's my silver lining here. But this is a conversation that I would love to continue later on to get to the fine points, because so far, a lot of the people from Apex and Geo side of Twitter, they are not satisfied with the way things are going, and I want to find solutions. And I really appreciate the fact that you were here, Jessica, and I would love to have you back once again anytime you would love to come on.
Yeah, of course. No, thanks, everyone. I appreciate it. Sorry I have to run.
No problem at all, Jessica.
It was nice talking to you,
much.
Jessica. Have a good night.
And guys, follow Jessica on Twitter over here, twitter.com/JESSICAXAN. Political strategist, former team Pete Buttigieg, New Deal leaders, political director, Arkansas Democrats, senior advisor and communications director. Jessica, thank you so much for coming in. And
we're gonna wrap this up, or
we are wrapping. Yeah, we are wrapping this up. But I just want to do a few announcements. Yes, so Gavin left. I want to do a few, and thank you once again for Gavin.
Apex.
The Apex Predator is still with us over here.
To us?
Yeah, what did you think of Jessica's response as well?
I was
didn't get a chance
about
to
the Substack thing, but that's.
Oh, okay. Well, first Jessica's response to Jessica, and then Substack.
Geo's a better grifter than I am, clearly.
Oh, sorry, I'm getting distracted by Twitter. I'm seeing this fucking tweet by James Martin saying, never mind. I mean, maybe we'll have a Catholic stream where we get to shred James Martin. That'd be amazing. Can you celebrate Pride?
No.
It's not about vanity, it's about dignity. Bro, literally Pride is one of the 7 deadly fucking sins. Like, this is never. Okay, go ahead, Apex, please.
Wait, aren't Italians really proud people though?
No, but we're ashamed of it. That's the key. We feel guilt over it. That's the
Catholic
difference.
guilt is actually just Italian guilt.
It's just Italian guilt or Irish.
Well, what about Jewish guilt? What about Jewish guilt? Doesn't that count too?
Well, no, Jewish guilt is more neuroticism. It's different than Italian guilt, or like it's got a different flavor to it than Italian or Irish Catholic guilt.
Hakan would be proud of this conversation.
Yeah, I know. The Jews have a different approach to being guilty. They have it's more of a personality complex thing, whereas Irish and Italians, the guilt is more of a deeply ingrained. I can't even describe it. It's a different thing.
You know what I'm not feeling guilty about? Eating the salad. Look at this beauty.
Happy Pride Month, Catholics. Well, I mean, the Ottawa Catholic school system is going to fly the colonial flag, if you know what I mean. And I personally think we should just get rid of the separate Catholic school system in Canada because they're not really Catholic. They're not really serving the interests of Catholic people. And this one person I know described it, who is a teacher himself, said that, oh, well, the problem that we just have to sort of hold our nose because then people will get pissed off. They'll retract their funding. They'll like take their kids out of school. I say, good, fuck them. Get out of here. It's my opinion. If you're not a real Catholic, why are you even going to Catholic school? Fuck off. Sorry, that's just my.
I wasn't a real. Thing. I wasn't a real Catholic, and I went to.
Yeah,
Catholic
why
school.
did they even let you in, Lev? Why? You were a subverter. Oh, sorry, I can't use that word because of your ethnicity.
Lev was an entryist.
Lev was he was
a 6-year-old entryist.
Well, the reason why I went to Catholic school first and foremost is because they did have a great educational system in comparison to the public schools. In public schools, they have like police there, with the metal detectors, all that funky
I went
bullshit.
to school with Muslims, and I think one Jewish girl who I fell in love with, but that's a different story.
Unrequited love.
Yeah, I know.
He didn't get those Khazar milkers.
She was only half Jewish. She was Jewish in all the right places.
Just a good half.
She was also half Vietnamese. That was kind of weird, but yeah. She was very strong personality. I've always attracted to women very strong personalities. Hence why I'm friends with all the bimbos on Twitter. That's why. I'm not even joking. I'm not making a joke. I think I have to do the based and trad pill thing and find an emotionally vulnerable girl so I could totally mind fuck her. No, I can't do that. I'd feel totally upset.
Oh, wait. By the way,
exploiting a young girl.
Speaking of bimbos, by the way, did you see the latest transformation?
No,
I mean, I gotta blame you. I gotta blame you, Gio, for introducing me to FaceApp.
Oh no, Jessica's dead inside. Look at those eyes. Oh my god.
Lev,
no, it's
I just
true.
Ate
I'm
dinner
fucked,
and
man.
Now it's back up on the floor. Like what the fuck?
What is this stream? Guilt is a sin too. Guilt is pride. Such inconveniences are missed. Yes and no. I mean, a form of morbid guilt is a sin, but I think like when guilt is a sort of, I guess you could compare it to a more ancient form of Hellenistic virtue ethic in terms of social shame. That's probably more the Italian and Irish thing going on there. I am godly that I abuse myself more than others, many such cases. Yeah, that is true. I mean, it's a complicated issue because in martyrdom and among the saints, that's actual suffering for a higher purpose. It's not like using suffering as an artifice to bludgeon other people, which I think kind of like Nietzsche kind of got wrong when it comes to, he talked about the pity of Christianity and the genealogy of morals. But anyways, go ahead, Apex. Sorry, we're distracting with bullshit as once again. By the way, shout out to
what am I talking about again?
What's this thing you have about Substack?
Oh yes, yeah. If you want to listen to me or read my thoughts in long form, I have a Substack.
And you were featured in the monthly.
So Substack's editorial team featured one of my articles in one of their newsletters.
Huge mistake. Now the media, now the Ezra Kleins of the world, they're gonna go after him even harder. Go ahead.
God, dude, I can't imagine. Like, I can't imagine. That would be awful. I'd probably just start making fun of Ezra Klein's face, and then the interview would be called off.
Didn't you have a war with Carl Beeger on the TL once? That was pretty epic.
Oh yes, actually, funny enough. Cool. So Carl Beeger had some tweet recently, and he was like, Who are some people who like have interesting perspectives, but don't build themselves as having interesting perspectives?" And someone linked me, and then he like quote tweeted it with like, "When you're blocked from interesting people," because I've blocked him for months. Dude, I hate that crowd. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I should preemptively block him.
No,
Wait,
honestly,
so what is this crowd? I'm not as familiar with it as you
The
are.
dirtbag left.
the dirtbag left.
Yeah.
You know, the neoliberals who think that if they say slurs, they're somehow cool or something. They're hip with the kids.
Bro.
But I gotta
I was
say,
blocked by the fucking DJ recently, but I blocked him before. But by the way, shout out to my chat, my lovely friends who in our chat that is run by Adam Lair. Oh, sorry, I'm not supposed to discuss that. But I'm in a chat with people. Never mind. Put it this way: the Red Brown Alliance is going to be real, and I'm going to be the scion of it. So.
Oh, and I'm not in that chat, Gio. Okay, I understand.
I know. We have to add you. Actually, we have to add.
I understand. I get it. I get it. It's okay.
Oh, wait, by the way, I'm gonna be right back. But before I
and also shout out to
make sure
Myrnaval.
everybody. Actually, Gio, could you shout out so the people in the chat? I will be right back.
All right. So Apex, what are your recent? I had this thread once about empathy, but you were going to write an article.
Yeah, that's my piece. My piece is coming up tomorrow on that.
Okay, good.
So
I have to
basically
monitor
like
for content theft.
yeah,
for me.
there's the problem is like so many of these concepts become like brutalized by friend enemy politics, you know?
Right.
Which is like one side weaponizes a term and the other side says, well, fuck the term. We're just not, the whole thing is stupid. And then you start losing. It's ironic that like newspeak, like we're taking the number of like words with unique meanings that aren't reducible to other words.
Right.
Where that seems to be a factor of like the both sides fighting each other more than the uniparty putting itself up.
Right.
It's like, is empathy a useful phrase? Like, freedom certainly isn't. Equality certainly isn't.
Yeah.
Like so many of these terms just get turned into useless sludge because the two sides or the bazillion sides just keep going at it.
The way I described it, this was, I want to say, but now that someone mentioned that Gila Klein H3, well, I'm going to get to that. This is important in terms of empathy. Why does Stout always retweet Vouch? The reason, because Matthew, we talk for hours on end about like basically e-grifters and various weird personality cults on the internet. And he like is just fascinated by the BreadTube people. I personally can't stand their content. I can't even watch a ContraPoints video.
Does Vouch's wife ever make an appearance other than that picture where she was naked?
Anymore.
Why would you bring that up, Len? Whatever was left of my dinner that I'd still had in my stomach is not going to be in my stomach much longer. Fuck you.
There's a name for that. There's a name for that. There's a name for that. It's called Mithridatism. You have to make yourself comfortable with all these, images of these women.
The Mahayana preaching in the broth.
Because it'll help you eat. It'll help you digest food in the worst of times. You got to prepare for winter. That's what I'm doing.
That's the Russian in you coming out, Lev.
Yeah, I mean, the Russians, they had to get used to pretty ugly situations, and they had to eat while they could, put it that way.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm eating on the stream all the time because you need to eat all you can.
So what we need to do is we need to send Lev back in a time machine with a phone that has that Vosh video and show it to Napoleon and all of his soldiers, okay? And then we're going to come back and see what happens. He'll have to report from the alternate timeline. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, but to be fair, Napoleon would have died of cancer anyway. So, well.
Did he die? Was it stomach cancer from all the salt, the nasty?
No, it was from being a manlet.
Yeah. Apparently, they said it was either stomach cancer or diverticulitis that was untreated.
Oh, by the way, look at this comment from Buff. You heard of Shed Wife? Get ready for Swamp Wife.
Swamp Wife. Well, they had those. God. They have those in the cell.
God.
Jessica.
No.
By the way, I still didn't get a
single. I wonder.
No, she's married.
Gio.
I still didn't get
I
still didn't get an answer. By the way, Apex to what did you think of Jessica's response? Because this is a conversation.
Go ahead. Then I have a point about empathy that I wanted to talk about the H3 thing. Go ahead.
So I will because I have to put something in the oven for a second. So let me respond, then Gio, you can go off. So I think that Jessica kind of touched on the thing that I talked about a lot when she talked about power at the end. Like it is all about power. Like that's what it all is at the end of the day. I think that, Lev, the kinds of people that you get onto this show tend to be significantly less egotistical than a lot of people are. I think a lot of people end up very entrenched in their systems, in their beliefs, and to the extent that you like I feel like there is common ground to the extent where I could have had a conversation with Jessica about liberalism, all that kind of stuff. Now, I think that both Gavin and Jessica clearly, I mean, part of it was obviously they were joking around, and I'm not sure if I would call it bad faith as much as just kind of verbal shit posting for periods of time. But like clearly there are situations in which neither side really grasps what the other is going for. I see this a lot. I mean, I am probably one of the more left-wing people in our sphere. I was a leftist for a long time until I left the movement, and I hang out mostly or majority with right wingers online, and I see on both sides just a complete blindness to what the other side is motivated by in a lot of ways.
Right, that's true.
And to the extent where it's not necessarily projectionism as much as it is taking like just the wrong explanation and then projecting the motives that would be required to cause that explanation to be true onto the other side. And I think it leads to a lot of problems. And that kind of flows like you cannot have empathy if you don't grasp why a person believes what they believe. Like beyond, like if you can stop a policy, you can break a policy because you can say, how does a policy work? What are the institutions that influence it? What are the institutions that enforce it? And like there are ways to combat a policy. But if you want to discuss something with a person, when you shift from the idea to the holder of that idea, you need to understand why they hold that idea. And I think in there is a profound deficit of empathy.
I think like
on both sides.
It came up recently. Like, I mean, like my tweeting today about how like these fucking creepy like middle-aged boomer liberals, they're so involved, they're so interested in how a teenage girl in Texas, like it's always the same bullshit. I'm referring to this like speech where it talked about the new heartbeat bill, and it's like, oh well, they just want to oppress women, that's why they hate abortion.
Guys, I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, but yeah, it's too bad. Yeah, because I wanted to talk about empathy because okay, so my tweet, this was a while ago.
Give me 3 minutes, Gio.
Yeah, go ahead. Then but before, okay, so you go. I also want to mention about the empathy, like about the other side thing. Now, I don't know if I should mention this publicly, but this is pretty heavy, and of course, I don't want to give any literal ghoul the benefit of the doubt. But recently, I mean, it's pretty much confirmed. Recently, someone close to us in our circles has been doxxed, and he's being harassed, and his wife has been doxxed. He's going to have a child soon. And I'm referring to Borzy, by the way. And I know, me and Borzy, we've had our disagreements, and he was very graciously extended an olive branch, and then we later became friends again. But then he got banned off of Twitter. But now apparently an Antifa group has doxed him, allegedly. I don't want to give into it. I think, in my opinion, that's personally, I want to say this, that, okay, whatever edgy opinion he has, whatever, right? I know, Lev, you're Jewish, and the TSA thing, But I just want to say that what they're doing to him is allegedly, I don't want to give credence to this docs, is disgusting and totally, it makes my skin crawl that you could go after a man's family over politics. And I think that, I know like Borzy, okay, yeah, he says edgy stuff and he talks about the Jews and all that crap, but it's like, I think that we should really...
That kind of treatment would be the very thing that would create more Borzies. It would create a whole litter of Borzies, basically.
Well, the thing is, like, I mean, I really hope that people rally around him and support him, because to me, like, to go after a man's family, and his wife apparently, allegedly, has a mainstream job and all of that, and they're going to have a child very soon, and I think...
No, it's horrible.
It makes me so profoundly upset and disgusted. And I'm not going to even mention the account's name that's doing this. But I think I want to say this publicly, that as much as you can disagree with someone, and, you know, me and Borzy have had our disagreements in the past, and we've mended, you know, that relationship. But I just want to say publicly on BTR that what's happening to him allegedly is, words cannot describe how fucking disgusted and sad and just angry and upset I am for someone. Yeah, his wife's getting removed. I mean, it's a likely possibility that their income is going to be severely affected by this.
Under what grounds, though? How would something like that work? So let's say that he gets found out of having this Twitter account. Then does the nursing home or hospital, do they contact the nurse and say, "Oh, like there are people
there are Antifa people that will explicitly call where his wife works, and it never goes down well. These people are ghouls. These people are evil, and they're demons, in my opinion." To do that,
not only are they demons, disgusting. But they end up creating. Little do they know, but they end up creating the one thing that they fear the most.
Yeah, exactly. If you truly believe that Borzy and TRS, they're all a bunch of Nazis and they're all a bunch of evil skinheads or whatever, then by like this whole bullshit about, oh well, see, we're preventing a genocide by going after them. Like I wouldn't be surprised if they're, like you've said, there will be more unironic Nazis being created from this than, I mean, I don't know.
But Gio, you notice what you said, though. You said that you disagree with Borzy, yet you defend his right to say what he says. That makes you kind of a classic liberal. That makes you kind of a classic liberal.
Wait 1 second. Wait 1 second.
Am I wrong?
Call Gio a Nazi and it runs off him like rain. Call him a classical liberal and look, he turns his camera off. So ashamed.
This is the power of the crystal. Look at this crystal, by the way, Apex. What do you think of this? Look at this.
Wait, what are you laughing at?
Look at this.
No, Gio.
Oh God.
Gio, I said that. Call Gio a Nazi and it runs off him like rain. Call Gio a classical liberal and he turns his camera off.
Yeah, no. So okay,
and now Lev is showing his powerful crystal that has clearly intimidated you.
Yeah. So, anyways, no, what I disagree with Borzy on, and hopefully maybe he could come on the show one day. I'm not into the JQ stuff. I'm not into I believe in ethnicity, obviously. But a lot of what Borzy says in terms of economics, in terms of his reading of various thinkers, I agree with. I'm certainly not as edgy as Borzy, probably. But no, look, this is his book. Before they ban it, what'd you say, Apex?
I like the little publicly you put in after there. That means we got to get drinks together somewhere.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, I don't like to think I hate a lot of minorities there. I think, like, if you were to get Borzy, like, in a one-on-one conversation, I think, like, he has a very nuanced view on things. But this is his book, Cultured Grugs. It's by Antelope Pill. Yeah, sorry. I thought it was a
Pill, yes.
What's the drawing? Oh, is that a dog?
That's a Borzy. It's a Borzy dog.
That's adorable.
Yeah. So go before they get rid of it, please. The reason I bought this is because I tend to like supporting my friends by buying their books.
What's the name of the book?
It's called Cultured Grugs. It's a compilation of his essays, but it also has newer essays. It includes a letter that he wrote to his future child, unborn child. And I think go out and buy this. even if you disagree, Lev, even if you know, because you're one of the tribe, you know, please go and buy this. I'm totally serious. We have to support our friend in a time of need. But no, his quality writing, like I remember like his essays such as Piss Earth. What is it? A Pisser 20. He has essays like about the original Pine Tree Twitter and Graph Twitter, which I find fascinating, the way it started and the general ideas of collapse. But also like his articles from the American Sun are also archived here. So like the Piss Earth article, Piss Earth 2025, The Last Man of the Deep Wild, which is, and also he does a lot of work archiving the thoughts of Petty Linkola. The reason I bring this up, Lev, is because it just happened today. Again, I'm not 100% sure it's him that he got ducked, but there's people saying that it is true. I just think like it's terrible what's happening to him, like I've said. And if Borzy wants to come on the show and talk again, but he's probably going to lay down low, I don't blame him. And as much as I disagree with some of the stuff that TRS says, I wouldn't be opposed to having either like I know people have floated the idea of having Alex is that his name, Alex McNabb, who is also another person interested in food.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, of course. Maybe one day we'll have Keith Woods. Of course, you know, like Lev, you get with these. Yeah, of course you're open about the fact that you're, you know, one of the tiny.
Since the very beginning, Gio. Yeah.
So, anyways, but another point.
No, but it's very interesting though, just how sensitive, like whether it's that or Israel or any of these things. It's like these are the trigger things to a lot of people on the further right part of Twitter. It's almost as if that's the one thing.
Well, I think because the experience is that people have hit it of your.
No, I think honestly it has more to do with just like being brought up in a particular worldview that is very hard to shake off. And I personally think that we are not our worldviews. I think that whatever we were born in, our family, our friends, a lot of these things, you know, like you are a scholar, Gio, and a gentleman.
Actually,
well.
Lev, if you write down all of your features on a piece of paper, all of your beliefs, that piece of paper will come alive and become you.
It's true.
Just letting you know, it's dark magic, you know.
But another point of business I wanted to bring up now that Apex is back about the empathy. I wrote this thread last year about empathy, how it's become a tool of political weaponization, because empathy is something that is granted to certain groups and denied from others. So it's kind of like what Michael Anton called the celebration parallax. So parallax is a two-sided. Yeah, go ahead.
I think that what you're talking about more so, and it's far more insidious than that. It's not that this group of people deserves empathy and this group doesn't. There's.
Oh, you muted yourself. And everybody subscribe who has not subscribed yet. I never let a good opportunity to shill
to the extent.
There we go.
That you know. It's like one doesn't talk about having empathy for a dog, really. I mean, there's sympathy, there can be pity. One doesn't want to, you know, like when your dog.
Unless you're a furry. What if you're a furry? Would you have empathy for a dog?
Well, if you're a post-human transspeciesist, then maybe go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, like no one wants to see an animal in pain unless they're a psychopath.
Right.
But we don't.
Unless
It's not the same as you don't put yourself in the dog's shoes, really. Not the same way you do with a person.
Right.
And
not even indigenous tribes would say that they're become dog. Like this is what Deleuze's point was in Becomings, is that they don't believe that they become a dog. They become sort of the spiritual impasse between human and dog, or whatever animal. Go ahead. Yeah. Sorry, Boris. Fucking Boris. Sorry, Apex. I'm cutting you off. For the longest time,
you're doxing me, bro.
Maybe Borze is Apex in disguise.
For the longest time, I used to confuse Apex with, I believe, someone else. Was it Borze or someone? I don't know. I used to confuse you with someone.
Well, I still think that Nigel Carlsbad is, you know who.
Bap, yeah, but
a waste of my time, but
oh no, go ahead, Apex, go ahead before we.
Anyways, back to empathy. No, I think that there is this persistent. I mean, I've written because I understand where you're coming from, Gio, and it's an extension of this. It's an extension of the same kind of tendency of where you get experts that are used to be like, oh no, this realm is objective. These are facts, you know, and these are not up for debate. This is not the realm of politics where our subjective preferences have to be balanced. No, like this is objective. It is fact. Facts don't care about your feelings. Blah blah blah. And it's very similar in that, you know, it's like these people like you're splitting up like this is objectively empathy worthy and this isn't. And the problem I see is that empathy is a real thing. Like it exists. It, you know, we tend to be able to, at least in our interpersonal IRL interactions, you can tell the difference between someone who is capable of empathizing with someone else and someone who isn't.
Right.
I mean, like there is a world of difference between a psychopathic con man and an autistic person. Like they just, one of them gets it and the other just doesn't. Right. And that's not necessarily good or bad. It just is. And I think that empathy is useful. Yeah, I think empathy is useful, but and I think in many cases, no, but I think it's important. I think this is my key. Empathy is incredibly important for us to treat others with empathy. Like it's important to do that. The problem is that empathy doesn't scale in the same way that love doesn't scale. You cannot have empathy for someone for a billion people. Like it is a paper thin imitation of that feeling.
There was this graph, by the way. There was this graph showing how more, let's say, conservative people have this reign of like the people that they care about centered around their immediate family, and then it starts to get less and less so. While for people who would be, let's say, more left-leaning,
There's
would
no
have
differentiation.
that. Well,
no,
there is.
Isn't.
There's less on the family
Lev,
and more around. Yes,
Lev, I think that there is a nominal one. I think that when you look at those surveys that tend to be more most of them are self-reported. It tends to be, and I think there's also a difference between understanding that you cannot have the same kind of empathy or love with a total stranger as you can with your family member versus fuck them, I've got mine. You know, like that. There's a distinction there. So I don't think that most Democrats, I mean, do I think that there is a broader focus at times? Sure, but I would remain of the opinion that you get people who have a pretty clear, like where you can have empathy of that maximal strength, and it's pretty constrained.
Well, do you think it also has to do with egoism, where certain people, they wouldn't really care so much about the problems within their own immediate family or even their own backyard, yet they would look at, let's save the whales or let's save these starving children in Africa, and that becomes their focus.
It's immediate. It's
like
sort of like a it's a mediation thing too, to like not care about the people around you, because like the solutions of caring about the people around you are infinitely more harder than like donating to the whales. Like, you know what I mean? So
yeah, it's freedom from, there's a freeing of responsibility. I mean, I always put it this way, as in, you know, if someone is in a what the fuck is that?
That's Carlsbad's
more like Carl's looking good.
Carl's not a very bad bitch. Yeah, that's not a.
Bro.
I didn't realize that the female Joker movie came out already. Good lord.
Oh, that's another thing. They've been trying to do the female Joker ever since Joker. What's this Cruella thing going on? I don't even know what the fuck.
No, they stole a bunch of shots directly from Joker, which I'm gonna be annoying and be like, I didn't really enjoy the Joker film, to be
Oh,
honest.
bro! No!
There's
I just
my
wrote
nuclear
one of the most
take.
popular American Sun essays about Joker. Clown Among the Ruins at American Sun, by the way.
You should all read
go
it,
ahead.
even if you don't like it, because I didn't know about this, and I'm gonna read it right now because Gio is the man.
Oh wait, and before you read it, what do you think?
I had a
think
film
the
professor actually give it to his students, believe it or not.
I think the Prudentialist is way hotter, by the
Yeah,
way. Right?
yeah. Edmund Burke would be a bimbo if Burke was
Edmund Bimbo.
Edmund Bimbo.
There,
you
whoever,
go.
someone grab that Twitter handle. All right.
You know
Edmund
what's
Bimbo.
crazy is that the picture I have of Prudentialist in my mind just by his voice, I can guarantee you he kind of looks like Edmund Burke in real life. I don't know. It's just something about it.
Watch him come out as like this pasty ginger.
Oh yeah, shit. I can see that.
Or Prudentialist is actually a black man from Nigeria, and he just he went to school ever since he was a child, so it doesn't sound any different.
Yeah, like you could never tell that Alex is from Romania, for instance. That's pure Western colonialism.
The Prudentialist is actually a malnourished Kenyan. No one will tell you this, but that is the truth.
Budget with a Skylink.
With a YouTube, yes, yeah. So
he
the government gives him money for food, and he uses it to run a YouTube channel.
Yeah, and you read about Edmund Burke because one time, some of the pirates were raiding a tourist ship, and someone like one of these like what is it? Polly said, flag saluting motherfuckers had a copy of. Anyways, go ahead, Apex.
No. I mean, like I'm gonna, Gio. I'm excited to see what you think of my essay when it comes out tomorrow.
Yeah, let's see.
Or if you want to.
And where's the link? Is it going to be on your Substack?
It'll be on my Substack, yeah. And I'll tweet it out. I tweet out all of my Substack articles because I'm a filthy grifter.
Apparently, you're a ladder climber and a grifter now, so that's.
Oh yeah, that was. I mean, I don't understand how like the now that's being added. Like there was no dissent. I was a grifter last November. Like you've known this, like there was.
But to
no
the person we're talking about, I'm
begin
friends
with
her too. I don't want to cast shade, but I know. Say no more.
Say no more.
But people in the chat.
I thought it was funny.
Yeah, but people in the chat, by the way, yes, apparently Apex and Carlsbad hate each other deeply, so that's.
No, I don't hate him. I think he's a fool.
Oh my god.
I mean, no, like listen, my block
Bro.
list at this point is like 4K long, okay, and my
but
Twitter
Can you
experience
say at
is
least,
massively better.
Can you say at least one thing that he is foolish on? And I'm neutral here. I think that both of you guys may be wrong in your own ways, but what do you think that he is so wrong about?
Oh no, just like broadly the economics questions in general are. I was reading some of the things, and I was like, whoa, that is The question that came to mind was how often did your parents play football with you when you were a baby?
Oh my god. Oh.
I woke up today and I chose violence, Gio.
Holy shit.
Oh, man.
Bro.
Well, guys,
How do you think I won our mock debate when I was running for frat president? All right. Don't challenge.
Oh wait.
me
Speaking of mock debates, Apex, what kind of things would you like to reverse debate on?
I think that well, like what, Lev, how about you say like what things would you find would you be interested in? Because I can go for a lot of different things.
Okay, well there was one, although I'm not sure if this is going to be the one for you. I have no idea. Just one that I happened to think of today because this is the subject that's in the air right now. Meat. Farm industrial farming, so that more people have access to meat versus we're just going to have to eat the bugs if we want that extra protein. So, cuz look, as far as that position with me goes, I feel really bad about these, just these hellscapes that a lot of these cattle live in. That's no fucking life.
Oh, yeah.
And for what? Just for eating a fucking burger. Well, at the same time, I don't want people to be deprived of, let's say, having a certain, I don't know. I mean, there is just something about just like eating bugs and living in the pot, all that, like I don't want things to go down that road, while at the same time, I don't want the animals to suffer too. So this is why, I like, for example, smaller farms that take care of their animals and all that. But
there's a very interesting corner of Twitter, in like the homesteading. If you haven't heard the term regenerative agriculture,
oh yeah,
and I am no expert on it. I can probably point you towards a number of people who are. I follow a bunch of them. There's a couple: Joe Norman, Rhizoma Field School, Cognizor. There's a bunch.
What about Rebel Rancher? I think Rebel Rancher was also
I don't
like
know.
that.
Yeah.
Who's that one guy on YouTube? Wrangler Star?
On the YouTubes. Mr. Boomer on the YouTubes.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard getting farmers on because they just have shitty internet. But Rebel Rancher, I think she's going to get the Elon Musk internet satellite thing as soon as possible. So she is pro beef, fitness, health, self-reliance, Second Amendment, anti-feminism, veganism, liberalism, big government, farmer food.
Hat on?
No, but here's her photo.
No, wait, what's this here?
But
very
I would definitely recommend.
Nice.
Rhizoma Field School. She's really cool. She publishes a lot of cool stuff. She follows retweets a lot of cool people. I'm learning a lot about it.
Can you send me the name because I can't type that?
Yes.
Rhizoma.
Yeah. I will. I'll DM you, Lev.
Excellent.
But no, I mean, I think that there are probably people who are much better. I mean. If you wanted a purely philosophical debate, I could probably take part, but I don't know the figures, and there are people who know those figures better than I do. Yeah.
You get like vegan gains to debate eating the bugs with.
Yeah, no, because I mean, like.
Wait, are bugs vegan?
I don't know. Maybe.
I have no idea.
I'm assuming not.
Yeah.
But I think bugs are actually close to mushrooms in terms of their genetics. Now, don't quote me on that.
Well,
but,
I mean, there's like some recent there were some recent articles that like trees effectively pass on memories to like their offspring.
I mean,
yeah, that's
one
true.
One wonders that if the entirety of it is like protecting entities from suffering, if eventually the only response is antinatalism, at which point it becomes a kind of stupid position.
I wouldn't.
Well, I guess
say
it becomes a stupid position long before that point. But that's besides.
With my current philosophy, I wouldn't go for anti-natalism just because I personally think that all the things that we are undergoing as like our own individual self are certain lessons, certain things that we have to overcome in our specific reality. I think this is what the Hindus refer to as a loka, where it could be either this planet or that planet, but the point is that you are in some state where you have a challenge, and like, do you meet the challenge? Do you stray away from the challenge? It's more about like, how do I act with the circumstances that are given before me, and that's
one
more
of the best books, the Bhagavad Gita, my friends. Highly recommend.
Yeah.
Also, if any of you are fans of Deloach and Guattari, I found that in my brief interactions with them before and after reading the Gita, that I understood them a lot better following reading the Gita than before. So
it is
just
a very
a tip
interesting
to anyone interested in those weirdos from France.
Yes.
Oh,
and by the way,
because Hinduism in some ways is it's still a metaphysics though. It's not that predicated on difference, but there's still like a lot of different, like when you read like 1,000 Plateaus, it becomes a bit more explicit in terms of
what's 1,000 Plateaus?
Their magnum
it's Deloach
opus,
and Guattari's like big work, one of their two biggest works.
Yeah, Anti-Oedipus and then 1,000 Plateaus. But like even before, like to truly understand it, you almost like have to read like Logic of Sense and Difference and Repetition. But like the general like eminent like post-Spinozan view of Deleuze is pretty much like not similar, but there's a lot of harmonies there with like a more mainstream view of things. Put it that way.
Fuck Spinoza. That's all.
Yeah, well, Spinoza is problematic, from my.
Spinoza is bad because his metaphysics fail, and he was a
Yeah.
liberal. Literally the worst. Both downsides. I'm sorry, Lev. I'm sorry.
It's true.
I love you.
I love you too, buddy. But what
And
I
one
am still
thing
curious
influenced the
about
other,
is
which people don't
for
comment upon.
all the hate that you guys are putting on liberalism, what's your alternative? This is the one thing that I can't quite understand. What is the system of government that you would prefer that would be better?
Well, that stream is over, Lev. We get.
I mean, all right.
fun.
If I'm let me take this from two sides. Just one, the ethical replacement, and two, what I would like society to look like following that. And the ethical replacement is that you need a coherent set of ethical standards that will replace the whole autonomy mediated by harm and consent. And that doesn't mean that you have a theocracy. It doesn't mean that you return to any kind of religious ethics.
But what does it mean, though? But what does it mean? How?
So
How would you do it?
For me,
how would you do it?
For me, my ethical stances tend to be based around the idea that there is a significant importance of life itself, that there is a diffusion of spirit throughout the world that ought to be respected and cultivated. In that sense, I think that individuals do act as stewards of the broader system, that they should develop themselves, develop their talents. I mean, I think that if post-liberalism, as much as that label has become cringe or has been cringe for the last couple of years at this point, but
the Fed Tegralists,
yeah, fuck Vermeulen. He's had me blocked for years. Good God.
Good riddance.
But if post-liberalism is to mean anything, as opposed to a return to something, or as opposed to a utopian idea, if post-liberalism is to mean anything at all,
or like literally like neo-reaction being basically like neoliberal accelerationism, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like,
so if post-liberalism is to mean anything at all, what it has to do is it has to begin with understanding that there is a profound importance and resonance that people have when they think about the idea of self-responsibility that emerged in the Enlightenment. When we look at the celebration of individual subjectivity that pervades modernity, and in that sense, there needs to be an understanding that I don't want there to be a world in which the government is telling you everything that it is to do. But what I mean is that there needs to be a system where we have our moral principles, which I think come down to, again, the importance of life, the importance of having time. Like one of my single most important political position, and arguably the reason why I don't ever vote for anyone, is I believe that in every town, in every neighborhood in the country, you should be able to raise a family of 4 on 40 hours a week of the minimum wage. That is what I believe. That's not a novel idea. That is directly out of Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations. Okay, I believe that you need time. I believe that the family is important, that the community is important, but that also the individual is important, and you need a balance there. And I'm throwing a lot of things at you, Lev, in a very unsystematic manner, and I apologize.
These are great. I mean, these are great goals.
What I mean is that I agree with the frustration that a lot of people feel, and I think that a lot of people feel this, and I love her to death, but with someone like Amy Therese, who is basically 100% critical politics, and you need that at times. Sometimes you need to philosophize with a hammer. Sometimes you need to philosophize with a stick of dynamite. All right, and that stick of dynamite's name is Amy Therese, and that's great.
Yes,
it's very, very
important.
Queen,
slay
and she's
them.
useful, and she plays an extremely
single, by the
important
way?
part. Geo, I swear to God, I'm gonna come to Canada.
Is she? No, but is she? I'm not hearing a no.
Geo, we're gonna have a conversation, all right? Off.
No, but Apex, like all these things that you mentioned. Okay, go on. Yeah.
So what I mean by this, Lev,
go to Australia.
what I mean by this, Lev, is that rather than there being solely, Jesus, I tried to speak Spanish and English at the same time. Christ, solely, a critical project. There has to be a constructive one afterwards. I mean, this, and so what I intend to do, and it will take time, but what I intend to do is to take these principles I just kept throwing at you and weave them together into one coherent worldview. And I've written in parts of this before. I wrote my defense of the pro-life position on my old Medium blog. I'm preparing to write a non-liberal or post-liberal defense of gay marriage, which I'm sure is going to make me many of friends on the online right. Like there's things that are coming, but I think that people really need to kind of dig down, and this is the core of my, the left wing or hyper capitalists, is like, if you take a communist and you grab him by the shoulders and you go, why should I be communist? And you just keep asking them why, they come back down, and it's freedom. It is always freedom, the same BS. It's the same.
Well, that's what
nonsense.
That's what came up. I wanted to actually, like, if I fucking get around to actually publishing on Substack, on your
website, you gotta update your website. Geo.
No, I have one. I just have to, like, I'm working.
No, the
on
store.
one.
We gotta get your store in order.
Yeah, and that too. Yeah, that's another fucking bugaboo. But Jesus. That came up. There was this. You could tell, like, M to F, put it that way, that had this reply in this one tweet about the fucking Texas girl and her graduation, about how women's bodies shouldn't have been a political issue in the first place. But okay, let's examine this for a minute. Not just women. Okay, so for the past, I would say,
bodies have been battlegrounds of politics for centuries.
You stole exactly. You stole my win. But the thing is, especially within the last, I would say, 100 to 150 years, since at least the 18th century, at least the birth of biopolitics, the body has been the number one main site of political discourse and action over, against, and for, since, I would say, the French Revolution. Like, that, this is like, the body is like the number one political instrument for a reason, in so many ways in one. So the same people that talk about a woman's right to choose and how dare that the body become a political issue are the same people that are virtually waging war over the body on us every fucking day. We live again. Right now is the month of waging war on the body, if you know what I'm talking about, without getting banned from YouTube, if you know what I'm referring to.
Or what about women's right to choose to work more in the trade sector?
But the issue of political choice over one's body is, again, another very ancient political issue, because, for example, the Greeks didn't, and then later the Romans, they didn't consider the same level of quote unquote bodily autonomy as a human right.
That's because it's a modern liberal invention.
Well, they saw themselves
because
as puppets,
the body was a tool
right?
of society in such a deep way.
Okay, but this brings me back to what I wanted to kind of critique a bit, and what Apex was talking about.
Right.
It's not the conclusion. It's not what you want to achieve. It's not like the kind of society, like you talk about, Adam Smith even wanted this. No, it's none of that. My big thing has to do with, like you were talking about, critical things that Amy Therese does, and then you were talking about constructive. I'm not sure what you meant by constructive, but basically you were talking, from what I understood, about a lot of world views, basically, like, what is your view of how society should be? to me, that's not the question. To me, what are the practical implementations as far as who has the authority to do what to who? That's what it comes down to for me.
No, but
And
Pan
what is the
Camera
system...
Down said a great response to that, Lev. Sorry, Lev, I cut you off. Sorry.
No, go for it. I was done.
Saying that, like, even married dudes struggling with this very brutal classic male anxiety. No, it's true. If you're in a marriage, I mean, okay, here's the thing. Let me, before I say this, sorry, I'm turning off.
Wait, this has nothing to do with what I just said.
No, it
right
doesn't.
Now,
well, no, but the body.
Gio, when you're done, I'm gonna respond to Lev. So you
Okay.
go off for a second.
But let me
respond to
preface
Lev,
this
but
with saying,
afterwards.
sorry, I'm just turning because like when I'm getting pumped, like right now I'm listening to Soulfly, but I'm closing off the.
I keep forgetting
album.
Gio listens to music all the time while we do this.
Well, yeah, but no, Primitive is one of my favorite. Came out when I was a kid. That's why it's one of my favorite. No, let me preface this with saying that I think like abuse and rape, and of course those issues are different. Marital rape is like, it is a thing. Obviously, like if your wife says no, then you should respect her. It's your godly obligation. But when it comes to someone's body within a marriage, both men and women, it is true that your body kind of is not your own in some sense, because a man has certain needs, a woman has certain needs, and it's like, it's almost your obligation. You're compelled by that supposedly heavenly contractual obligation. A man sacrifices his body every single day to provide for his wife and kids and family. Like, your body in the sense is not this like autonomous thing, like, oh man, I don't want to work today, I don't want to be a whatever.
No one wants to work.
But that actually
Exactly.
goes back to my point too. Who gets to decide there? Who gets to force or enforce a particular
no,
structure?
I think
this like introduction of capitalist contractual language within such things as love and relationships and the people that you associate with, like, to me,
but
that's just a total
that
cheapening of that.
I agree.
No,
Gio, I agree it's a
Gio,
cheapening, but it's not for that. It's for the worst of the worst. It's for rape and beatings and
No. I know. I think, Gio, I think that you're not. I think that you're trying to talk about a chat question and answer Lev, and it's not working.
Okay, yeah. So what's
and
Lev's question?
I love listening to you go off, my friend. I do,
yeah.
but I think
because I haven't yet to go off an H3, which is going to be our closing thing. So
okay, all right. So you do that soon. All right, but let me answer Lev first. And
all right.
So the response that I would give is that, one, there is always. So there's always going to be a biggest kid on the block. So there's going to be an entity, an institution, an individual, depending on the scale you're looking at, that maintains to some real sense what we'll call sovereignty. And in that sense, there's always going to be institutions imposing themselves onto other institutions. And I think that the question becomes, what you're asking is, where are those impositions okay? And so I wrote, and I'm not trying to be a grifter here, I wrote a piece on platforms and free speech, and the idea that when you're balancing the rights of an institution versus an individual, you should probably err towards the side of the individual in general. Now, in any particular case, that might not be true, but in general, when we're looking at the balance here, because effectively these online platforms act as a virtual public square, which is analogous to but distinct from the physical public square. And in that sense, I think that what you have to do is you have to start kind of looking at, well, what things are necessary. So if a public square is necessary, well, then obviously there's limits on what Facebook can impose on its users censorship-wise. And if, there is if we're saying that there are certain economic responsibilities. So I think that what you have to do is that you have to start by having some kind of substantive vision of the good. And from there, then you have to kind of get into the pragmatism, which is, also it can be, this would be a great policy, but to enforce it would require a bunch of terrible policies. So like
that's pretty much my point.
Yeah,
and that's something I haven't heard at all from anybody within
but then again,
the
it's
sphere.
like define terrible. You know what I mean?
No. I think that what Lev is saying is true, and it's something that I have complained about, and it's also something that I, in a hypocritical manner, am rightfully accused of at times, in the sense that we need more concrete, like. To a certain degree, the dissident right has to, and the dissident left, or whatever the fuck I am, weirdo on the corner, has to take the mentality of building a political platform, and from there kind of explaining, because like do
you leave room though for maybe eventually, maybe you get to the point where you figure out, whichever political platform I want to go for, it's actually going to result in way more damage and way more of me and my friends being put up against the wall than I would prefer. So actually this sucky system that I hate of this liberalism bullshit, this is right now the only thing that I could think of that's not going to result in this bad ending. And to Gio's point about how do you define that?
But
the problem is they're gearing up to where they're getting to that place where they could just go ahead.
And this is why we have Jessica on, so that we can give her the details about that.
Yeah, I think the response is that I don't necessarily think they're going to throw anyone up against a wall anytime soon. I think the response is that there are a plethora of systems that are of alternatives that will not result in people getting tossed up against a wall. And I think that there are a number of systems that we should be discussing and thinking about. And that from there that you can begin to have a discussion about those alternatives. I think that, look, do I LARP as, it's not a LARP, it's, do I, have a number of arguments that says that, that are skeptical of democracies? Sure, I do. I'm sympathetic to various monarchist stances. Is that going to happen in America? No, it isn't. Not going to happen now. Not going to happen in 2050.
And
not
also,
going to happen in 2100.
Which monarchism are we talking about?
So,
are we talking about
those
the Queen
things
of England?
collapse, then we'll have to go back to some kind of like.
No, because again, like I mentioned before,
Peter the Great,
Peter the Great, who was very progressive for his time, he buried people alive. So
no, I know, but the point is that there will never be any of them. Like at no point is there going to be a monarchist institution. So the question has to come down to, like, my 40 hours a week to raise a family of 4 policy is one, it's my central policy, and 2, it would demand a bunch of fairly radical economic policies along with it. Now, I think that those radical economic policies would actually would distribute greater power to people. I think it would make individuals and local towns much stronger. But you have to you got to sell it. You got to have something that isn't incredibly insane, and you got to be able to sell it. And I think that's the reality of the situation.
So wait, autistic meets on Twitter and 4chan.
Like, no, like
that's
no one like. I love a bunch of the guys, but and the people on Twitter, but like let's be honest here. Like, none of them are going to end up being the head of a political movement.
And this is why we have
the
Jessica
one guy
Deloach
tried.
on.
He's probably the one guy had something first platform, and I don't want to get into rumors.
Do you see, like, this is why we have. This is Gio. This is why
let's just say you don't want to catch him in a dark room.
Okay.
You'll see the effervescence of never. Okay, go ahead, Lev.
Okay, but Gio, you see my point, right? This is why we get Jessica Deloach. This is why we get people who are more connected, because I want them to hear
Lev,
Apex out. I want
okay.
them to understand all the things that he's talking about and to kind of see like what actually does make sense here from people who have been more experienced in certain fields. But also, Apex, if you can, just for my own homework, would you recommend like any specific, let's say, practical, utilitarian, whatever you want to call it, just
this
like
guy
some
has boring
practical
opinions.
movements that you would want me to do research on, as far as how
I'm being
this
sensitive.
system that you want to implement would be not, you know what I mean, not the system implemented, but how the family of four situation will be enacted. Like, what is, because it's not going to be full on communism, and again, as somebody
No, it
from
can't
the
be.
USSR,
Well, that's the problem.
By
is
definition,
like,
it can't be.
The problem is we get this. We burrow ourselves into this stupid dichotomy in which it's
it's
you let the
ridiculous.
mega corporations run, just trample you, or it's like, well, I guess we have to collectivize everything, and it's like, really.
No, I agree.
Like, that
I
was
agree.
the
Yeah,
That's
but
not
that's
the
a
case.
much
I'm
better.
not angry at you, Lev. I'm angry more so at the people at Twitter. Is like,
No,
it's
but
like,
th- but
really,
this is
those
why I
are the
want
only
something-
two responses we have.
But then give me a response. Give me
No,
something
what we
I
have
can
to
work
do
with.
is go back to
That-
what corporations were temporary entities that were
No,
they were
so-
antitrust laws that broke them up after they served a specific purpose.
But Gio, even here, how would we implement that? What is the system under which we would implement
Well,
those
because-
reforms?
So, okay,
It would
wait,
be a
wait,
liberal
Because
system.
in America, the
Gio,
original Catholic antitrust
Gio.
laws were totally fucking gutted by the neoliberals.
Gio,
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
I gotta run, so let me give Lev
All right.
just a few recommendations. Okay.
Thank you.
So first, historically, the most obvious example of antitrust would be Teddy Roosevelt. I'm not, I'm not an expert on Teddy Roosevelt, or on which history is the best history of his presidency, but that obviously just kind of getting into there and the
Sure.
focus on
But that's
antitrust
still
there is
operating.
important.
But that's still operating within a liberal framework. That's what I am not getting. Like, yes, of course.
Well, what do you
Not really,
define as a
but-
liberal framework?
Well, I mean, for example, a liberal framework I would describe as being one where people are not excluding from participating in the marketplace, both of ideas and the physical marketplace, based on any characteristics of, where they were born and, all that kind of stuff. So that's
Oh,
number
see, like
one.
I think that's way broader than what I would refer to as. Like, I agree with you on that.
That's part of it. And another
Yeah,
part of it
I
would
just-
also be not prevent people from trading with each other in a broad sense. And I know that with antitrust, there's a little bit of, room there to curtail a lot of the more menacing aspects of the things that we've seen from the Gilded Age. And I could agree with you there, but the system is still not one where you have a top-down rule of a dictator, which is a system that I'm seeing more and more, although I've seen it all the time, people
but
from
Lev,
the reactionary
my
side of Twitter
contention-
advocating for.
But my
That's my
contention
whole
is that
point.
you're still stuck with an older, like, you're
So
still stuck
my
with... Go ahead.
sorry,
go ahead.
Gio, go. I didn't hear you going.
No, I was just going to say that, like, the difference is that power has evolved, and this whole, like, dichotomy, like Bruce is saying, about, like, yeah, Lev believes that we just have to basically... we'll consolidate behind some dictator figure against some scapegoat. Basically, something bad will happen. No, the problem is that when it comes to like modern liberalism, you don't necessarily have to have death camps and like mass graves where you're bulldozing reactionaries into a pit. As much as the fucking like vouches the world want that, it's not going to happen in the sense that power has moved beyond the need to destroy the physical body. They're after something much more intangible. They're after life itself. That's the thing. They don't have the same need, because if you can exclude people from the political process to begin with,
but what is the
then you
system
don't need
that
to
you
like
wanna...
just destroy them physically.
But what is the system that you want to use
So
to overcome
my-
that? That's
My
what I don't get.
my response is effectively that one, the idea of free exchange, the question becomes, what is free? I mean, when you look at how Adam Smith paints the picture of the free market, it looks nothing like our society is, and it looks nothing like it's not unregulated at all. A free market refers to a huge number of buyers and sellers. I mean, really, it is an economy of small businesses and individuals. That's what it is. The fact that there is an Amazon, the fact that there is a BlackRock, is proof we don't live in a free market. And the fact that really they didn't emerge out of because of government protection. I mean, is a free market either desirable or good? That's another question. But really, I want an economy of large number of small businesses, of local businesses, of decentralized production. And I think you get there by understanding that you have to reunite labor and capital. And what I mean is that, the sovereign always defines property norms, that it explicitly or implicitly. And you have to have it so that you don't have these pools of $1 trillion, $10 trillion floating around, buying up tons of companies that really, you understand that value comes from labor and risk, and that you need to unite these things. And I think that Lev, if you want to understand what that might look like, there's what I would call an ideal that Adam Smith presents called the independent workman. And the independent workman is the individual who owns their own tools, they own their own land, so they own their own capital, labor, and land. And I really think you need to unite those things again.
You can't have, in other words, you can't have like malicious actors that are basically chaos maxing by buying up every single resource. You can't have a Bill Gates buying up every fucking farmland.
But it still goes back on how you enforce. What is the engine of enforcement?
Let's see, without Fed posting when it comes to Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos, without Fed posting,
but the end enforcement is always the state. Like I can't go into BlackRock or go into a home that BlackRock has just bought in my hometown and be like, you are a New York company. You're not putting an office in this house. I'm going to use it. I can't do that. I will get evicted. The enforcement is always there from the state. It's always there.
Sure,
the question is, what property norms? How do we define what belongs to who? And I think you define it by who is actively. You have to reunite the ownership with the use, with the labor. Is no more of this institutional investors are buying 1/3 of the housing market. You buy a house, you're expected to live in it.
In some ways, it's almost like the first half of the Marxist equation about having labor that isn't alienated from the production of the actual product that you're producing. Your use value, as a species being, is not being fundamentally detached from your actual economic output. So that's and your surplus value
Marx is
totally
effectively
destroyed.
a descendant of Smith and Ricardo. He is the culmination of the classical school. But the idea that the state is not enforcing things violently today, and it would be in an alternative, simply isn't true. It's always enforcing things. And my point is that I would rather it enforce an alternative, but an alternative that is not intrusive. I don't want collectivization. I don't want to deal with a committee of people who are deciding where the resources go. That's not what I want.
I understand that you may not want that, but the question is, would certain policies, you could call it a slippery slope or whatever, but would certain policies that you would want to implement give a certain amount of power that right now, let's say and I know that you could say, oh, we don't have that much of it, but relative to what? If we still have this balance of powers, checks and balances, my only concern with any of these implementations that, let's say, you may think would make sense is that unless you're going to be implementing them within a framework of this liberal society without a top-down dictatorship, unless you're doing that, And if you are doing that, then you're still working within that liberal framework. But if you're doing something else,
I think that
somebody.
No, but I mean, like
that's pretty much what I come down to. You know, that's
I think that it's totally fine. Like I think that you should protect free speech and that there should be checks and balances in government, and that no particular entity, like there should be in the same way there should be checks and balances in the government. There should be checks and balances against individual companies becoming too powerful, power needs to be distributed. And material power needs to be distributed. That's the key here.
But the problem is that, like, even just like speech, what people think is speech is like totally wrong. Like, you have to divorce like certain enumerations of expression from speech or from ideas themselves. Pornography is not free speech. Like having a drug company produce hormones doing, well, whatever, redacted, is not free speech. Having a corporation being a person is not free speech. That's like just a bullshit bugaboo that's been supported by the like overarching neoliberal system to get what they want out of human worker cogs.
Yeah.
You know what
Guys,
I mean? Like,
I have to run.
One more question.
All right, fine, Gio, shoot.
Machas and M in the chat said, really, the problem isn't as a political problem; it's more of a biological problem. So, what do you think of that? I think it's partially true. I mean, the bios of the population does largely determine a lot of political outcomes. Whether you want to like go down some like scary like white nationalist type of stuff, I don't know. Like, I mean, Singapore has learned this as well with the whole IQ shredder thing. But what do you think of like the biological question as opposed to the political question?
I think that you can't really separate the biological question from the spiritual question. And in that sense, we are in a deeply degenerated society. I mean,
yes.
I think that, you know, the fact that you get like, okay, you get a vaccine and then you get a bunch of free food that is one of the hardest like co-indicators of bad COVID. Like I don't know if you saw this, Gio, but like if you get a vaccine in New York City, you get like a year's worth of Krispy Kreme donuts and free Shake Shack. Okay. Which is like
brutal.
Like, no, like just absolutely not. Like,
terrible.
Our system is based on, we are living in a deeply unhealthy society. And until that is fixed, and it's not going to get fixed.
No, deeply
it's not going to get fixed until we stop uprooting gardens to pave over them and put in a bunch of corn and soy.
But even just like burying shit, like I was reading this one epidemiologist that was saying like this whole bullshit about you have to get the vaccine even if you had and you recovered and your recovery was good, because of course your immunity is predicated on the recovery from the first time. And so me and my parents, we had a pretty good, you know, I didn't end up in the hospital. You know what I mean? So your chances are probably, this epidemiologist was saying that the chances are with a variant is probably better if you've had a natural immunity to it than even like the vaccine.
But my point again is just like, you know,
but the thing is, our natural immunities have been shredded for so many decades.
That too. But it's just like, you can't have a healthy political system when two-thirds of your country is overweight.
Yeah.
And half of your country...
I'm saying this, you know, this is me talking. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a fucking fat ass. Like,
you know, I mean,
it's true. It's terrible. It's a national security threat. It is, because if you had a war and you had to draft people like in Vietnam, we'd be fucked. The Chinese would fucking kill us. I hate to say it. The only thing that works is that their MREs, if they up the caloric
in styrofoam and drop you on the Chinese force.
Oh, that could work.
I'm sorry. I love you.
Terrible. No, but if they upped the caloric intake of their MREs to the point where the Chinese soldier isn't at starvation level, America would pretty much be fucked in a war. I hate to say it. That's just true.
No,
right?
I mean, it's our country as a whole, like, we are deeply unhealthy. We've priced people, like, unless you live in a rural town that is largely somehow sheltered from the scourges of globalization. Like, you can't get eggs and meat and vegetables and fruit cheaply. Like, you just can't. Like, I know places to go when I'm at home where they're not super expensive. I know these small farms that are like, yeah, like, we've owned this land for we've owned this land for 100 years and it's paid off and we don't care, and it's cheap, and here you go, here's like a pound of strawberries for a quarter. Like,
or if you like live in like an older suburban community that has connection to like what I do, like we have a much older suburb where people have had
but like
gardens
in the city, I'm in the
yeah.
middle of techno Babylon right now. Okay, and in New York City, all right, like,
wait, you live in New York City?
Yes,
we should hang out.
You don't know that, Lev?
Yeah, come on, bro. I thought you were a friend, Lev.
I was distracted.
How could you?
Black goop made me
all
forget.
All of today's problems boil down to the 90% of the population who use this not needed anymore. You know, I hate to say it, but there's this YouTuber, Vagrant Holiday, where he was filming the riots in Seattle. And I'm thinking, like, these are all the sons and daughters and zers of people that we've let in America. And I'm thinking, like, with love being like a total wignat, like, it's kind of fucked up when you think about how, you let in substantially subversive populations that don't have the same, like, I know it's like, nowadays this is like a quote unquote racist opinion, but it's like, you've let in people that don't have the same notion of a civilization that you do. And so now it's like,
I'm Native American. Just think about how I feel.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's the same.
Yeah. Although, to be fair,
like,
weren't some of the Native Americans wearing those Masonic pieces of jewelry because of the antediluvians who were there? I'm not going to get into that right now.
No, but,
I have,
the Masons took from them.
I have the same, like, haplogroup as some Western Europeans or something.
Yeah,
there we go.
R1B
so it's like, even there, like, if we think the shit that's going on now is bad, who knows what the fuck they were doing back during the Atlantis days? We may have been spared a lot of, Well, anyway,
But I'm really glad I could do this. I'm sorry I missed the last few. Going back to the office has been a bit of a pain in the ass. But
you gotta go back?
Yeah, no, I've already been going back. Yeah, it's
oh wow.
Yeah.
Can't you do your job at home though? Like,
yeah.
Apex, what would be cool? If we get, because I'm pretty sure we're going to have Gene Epstein on soon, and he's from the Mises Institute, and he does the, what do you call it? Hold on, what are they? The Soho Forum debates. So I'm not sure exactly when we're going to have him on, but he's interested in coming in. So you could be a great panelist there as far as asking him certain things and just kind of like testing out your concerns with, like, very libertarian, Ludwig von Mises style free market things. So just like that would be somebody who I think would be a big
if I am
figure.
Free, absolutely. That would be quite fun. One of the best. The single person who had the most constructive criticism of my economic beliefs over the course of like 2 or 3 years was a devout Hoppian. So it was great. I mean, it was like, I'm telling you, and this is one of the reasons I respect Love so much, is like when you find the people who disagree with you very much but are open and willing to have those conversations, you learn a lot. I mean,
well, please send me more books, because you mentioned FDR, and I'm definitely going to read
Teddy,
a lot more about him.
Reading.
Oh, did I say FDR? Shit, I meant TR.
But Teddy.
FDR was working
also,
for Stalin, anyway.
Henry Georgism is interesting, and then if you want to look up distributism, I'm sure you've probably heard of it at some point.
The distributist.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a number of very interesting writings. There's also a quite interesting debate in the space between the pro-guild and anti-guild distributists. I tend to follow along, and sympathize more with the latter. But yeah, if you want to, those are all. I know one that's always overlooked is from the church is Laborum Exercens. So definitely recommend going on that. But besides that, yeah, I gotta run, lads.
Yeah, me too soon.
But it has been quite fun. It was good talking to you guys
as
again.
Always.
Same
as
here,
always,
brother.
my friend.
All
Same
right.
here, brother.
Good night, guys. Peace.
Good night.
Peace.
So, guys, don't forget to subscribe, although I'd be very surprised if you have not subscribed yet. And be sure to follow Apex if you have not followed him. And, of course, subscribe to his Substack.
And I subscribe to his Substack, coming out with a fire article tomorrow. One last thing I just want to mention before I have to go eat is this fucking thing with H3H3 going after Steven Crowder. Now, here's the thing. I don't like Steven Crowder. I think he's a grifter. I think he's kind of stupid. And he's a normie con. He's basically what the boomers think a proper young man conservative is. But
change my mind. That's your sign.
But that being said, the fact that I okay, everything I think if I know he's problematic and he's a grifter himself, whatever. But if you go to Gonzo Liera, Coach Red Pill's YouTube channel, he has this video about it. That's basically my thoughts. Ethan Klein is a fucking grifter piece of shit that has basically secured the bosom of YouTube, and he will never get canceled. He will never get owned. He is a functionary for the YouTube establishment, and to go out of his way, whatever you think of Steven Crowder, and I'm not the biggest fan of Steven Crowder, to go out of his way to make fun of Steven Crowder for being demonetized and then belittling the fact that people get censored and be demonetized when he said shit on his podcast, oh, well, only ISIS and Alex Jones get demonetized and taken off the platform. Bull fucking shit. Do you know how many YouTubers have been taken off the platform? So yeah, Crowder's been getting more red-pilled lately. Yeah, I mean, that's true. And plus, I mean, compare Crowder's wife, who was a virgin when they married, to Gila Klein. Not saying that she's ugly or whatever, but no, Ethan Klein, he is, and again, it's not because he's a certain ethnicity, because my co-host here is also that ethnicity. It's nothing to do with that. But the fact that he goes out of his way, he's a total fucking moron that doesn't know anything about what he talks about, especially when it comes to politics, especially when it comes to the Catholic Church. The fact that he would go out of his way to belittle and make fun of Steven Crowder for basically YouTube trying to take away his livelihood, I think is totally disgusting. And basically, you're going to get your judgment one day, whether you believe in it or not. When you go up to the Lord and you are judged for your sins, people like him, people like the guy that's trying to dox Borzy, you will meet your creator one day, and don't be shocked when you're going to get the response that I'll say no more. I don't want a Fed post. I know he's prolific with taking down channels that go against him, but let me just say I have no respect whatsoever for Ethan Klein. I think he's a fucking jabroni, and what he's doing is despicable. And as much as I disagree with Steven Crowder, and I think, whatever, I don't exactly like his form of humor. Not that I think it's wrong. I just think that Steven Crowder, he's got boomer opinions, whatever. He does the dress up thing, and it's kind of cringe, bro. It's kind of cringe. But
you remember when he had that kid on who was talking about immigration?
Yeah.
And how when that kid said the word autistic, all of a sudden just became...
I respect Ethan Klein. He's getting the bag being a shit liberal. Crowder is a fucking cringe transvest. I don't know. I mean, they're securing the bag, but then there's just being a mouthpiece and a functionary. I think that's the difference with Ethan Klein, is that, yeah, he's probably securing the bag, of course. I mean, he's probably got the fucking YouTube bucks, but when it comes to selling your soul, and of course he's a content theft as well, which people don't bring up as often. He explicitly stole from a man that he could only dream of being as funny of. He stole from Sam Hyde explicitly. That's another issue. Look it up. I know Sam Hyde was doing a Francis C. Deck bit, but that's what were you gonna say, Lev? Sorry, if you let me continue, I'm just gonna start Fed posting. So go ahead.
Okay, so I just want to say that for all the people who are saying, guys, we need to do a stream with all the people in the chat inside of it. Well, guess what? We already do that. It's called Patreon. Patreon.com/breaktherules.
Making fun of grifters losing their. Okay, here's the thing.
Gio, I was doing a pitch for Patreon.
Steven Crowder
God
is a
damn
grifter. It's true, and it's not that I'm gonna because Steven Crowder. I mean, I don't know. It's not that I hate him. I definitely hate Ethan Klein. But my issues, okay, there's one thing to make fun of Steven Crowder, but to belittle the fact that YouTube does censor people left and right, people who aren't grifters, that's totally different. Ethan Klein is basically carrying the water for YouTube. That's my thing. And of course, he insulted and attacked the Catholic Church every chance he gets. But that's another issue.
Well, speaking of the Catholic Church, people were trying to guess where I went to in the Berserk stream. So in the Patreon-only streams, which I am trying to do the ad for, so in the Patreon-only streams, I went outside for the first time in the recorded BTR history. And Gio, where did I go?
You went to the Catholic school you used to go to.
Yes, I went to my old Catholic school, and I showed you the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And you guys can get that kind of entertainment when you become a patron.
Without totally
hold on, I'm still shilling the Patreon.
Patreon. Sorry.
So $5 patrons are going to get a top secret place in our Discord, as well as access to those aforementioned Patreon-only streams. $20 patrons are going to get a beautiful magnet. Here is the definitely legit magnet. You know him, you love him. Definitely legit. He's definitely legit. He's the Lassie dog. You guys like the Lassie dog, don't you? So definitely legit magnet. Yes, we all love definitely legit. Anyway, that's $20. So $30 is going to bring you a beautiful print from Giovanni Panicetti. You guys have seen it, but I'm going to show it once again as soon as I find it. Here we go. Here's the print. Yeah, at the FWF, no GF. So then for $50, you get all of the above, plus a beautiful figure from Warhammer 40k by Jules Hamilton. You are going to get another beautiful painting from Gio in the Bob Ross style, and you are also going to get a wood print custom. Whatever you want, he's going to do that. No, I'm not going to let you get away with that, you fucking... Okay. Anyway, that's the end of the pitch. Thank you very much. Become a patron.
No, another issue would be... Okay, so... the thing is, I'm going to totally alienate people here, but there's just like the whole like YouTube commentary community. I don't see like what content do they produce besides commenting on each other. You got the fucking Oreo man. You got the skinny pencil neck fucking guy that's going after. I mean, you got, of course, you have. Well, I mean, Ethan Ralph is different. I mean, the only guy that really does it good is my friend Turkey Tom. That's pretty much it. He's the only guy that does it good. But the commentary community thing, the fucking right opinion guy, it's like they all, what do? They comment on other YouTubers who are commenting on other YouTubers who are commenting on Keemstar. What original content is fucking there to comment on? What? Is there like an antediluvian state of like there was once commentary that people were doing, there was content, but now the content became so meta that there's a whole list of YouTubers like the Oreo man, like the fucking veteran crazy guy that's kind of like Destiny, like fucking the skinny pencil neck, like the fucking furry, the British furry. There's people that just comment on each other, and it's a huge circle jerk. What is the purpose of the YouTube commentary community? What? I know I'm doing a Tim Dillon bit, but the only guy that I respect, besides Noah Hugbox, but I wouldn't. No, scratch that, because I would never soil the name of my good friend Noah Hugbox by saying he's part of the fucking commentary community. Because Noah actually does create content based on original ideas and concepts that he's taken from media. The only guy that does it good is Turkey Tom. Lev, if you could put Zapty up, and maybe I could DM him, he could come on BTR. The only guy that does it good is Turkey Tom. That's it. Fuck the Oreo man. I don't care about the Oreo man. I don't care about Dax Herrera, the fucking cheese pizza apologist. I don't fucking care about these other guys that go on about.
This is Turkey Tom, right?
Yeah. His Twitter is Zapty. I don't care about the Cecily. Well, I mean, Cecily McFly does some good stuff. These people that they jerk off each other. It's like, oh, look at this lol cow today. Now we're gonna go after this other Minecraft streamer that sits there in his fucking mom's basement and then streams Minecraft for 12 hours of the fucking day. I don't care about them. What do they do? Sorry, I'm just getting heated. But no,
that is going to be definitely cut as a short.
Can't believe you didn't ban Bruce, did you?
No, I didn't ban Bruce.
Yeah, he always said we don't censor the chat except if there's gamer words. So Bruce was trying to post the fucking gamer word. Bruce, you know better. I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry. You know better.
Yeah.
Every fucking time we have a lib on, you always ask them about the white genocide. Oh God. Oh my God. But anyways, the commentary community
I think we're used to
is
this by
totally
now.
cancer. Yeah. And the fucking H3H3 and that fucking cuck iDubbbz, they're the ones that started it all. I hate them for that. They're the ones that started it all. Everyone wants to be iDubbbz. Everyone wants to be H3H3. Everyone, even though they all hate him, they all want to be Keemstar. That's what they want. Okay.
By the way, I love this comment.
I know they all make money. I know they get way more views than BTR, but Jesus Christ, why would they get views for just beefing with other YouTubers that play fucking Minecraft?
Geo, because it's the lowest common denominator today.
We're going to start playing Minecraft, and we're going to talk shit about Keemstar and Leafy and then the fucking pencil neck guy that drags up drama from 5 fucking years ago and gets thousands of views, or that other fucking guy that stabbed Leafy in the back, or hey, let's just have a stream about H3H3. We're gonna subtweet Ethan fucking Klein. That's gonna be BTR now. That's gonna be BTR. All the planning and all the shit that we do, fuck it. We're gonna be a drama channel. We're gonna talk about how the fucking Minecraft guy with the face mask, how he says the N-word on Telegram. We're gonna do that. We're gonna talk about how JonTron is a Nazi. I'm kidding. We're not gonna talk. I would love to have JonTron on the show, but I feel like he would never come on because he has a problem with people thinking that he's like, I don't know, alt-right, evil, neo, whatever. They're not going to be thinking that for long because Gio, we bring everybody on Break the Rules. This is what we do, and people are just going to have to say what you want about BreadTube. At least they do, say what you want about the OG Gamergate people and BreadTubers. At least they somewhat talk about political issues, whether they're cringe or whatever. But these commentary people, They talk about each other. It's this little YouTube community where they all fucking go after each other. They all have their little cliques. They all have their little thing. It's like, I don't care what the fucking British leftist gay guy talks about. Oh, Ellen DeGeneres. Like, who cares about Ellen DeGeneres?
Wait, who's the British leftist gay guy?
I'm talking about The Right Opinion. Listen, have I watched The Right Opinion? Yes, I have. Is he a good... do I disagree with him politically and everything? Yes, I do. Do I think that some videos where they're talking about each other, I think it's worthless. I think that where you're talking about each other and not about other things, I think is bullshit. That's my opinion.
By the way, we went way on too long. Okay, so
Syrian Wignatism. Listen, Syrians are the real white people. Okay, Syrians are the real Aryans. No,
we have a comment from Buff over here. Maybe Gio is just hungry. Turkey Tom, Oreo Man, cheese pizza.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's oh my God.
And anyway, look, guys, I'm looking.
Don't get me started on Ethan Ralph either, or Dick Masterson, or his friends that are cheese pizza people like Digibro, or that other fucking guy that we had on their show. I deeply regret him having on his show because he's nothing but a fucking edgelord, and he talks about and he's friends with Mr. Girl, and he went after Hero, and he's just I'm not gonna say his name. starts with a V. We share some ethnicity together. I'm unfortunate, but I'm talking about
man.
Vito. I'm talking about Vito.
Yeah.
Fame star and
Vito didn't do anything bad on BTR. Like, he was here. No,
but there's other shit that he's done recently. Fame star and Fasci Zizek. I would love to have. I think if we could get it done, I would love to have Tyler Hamilton, Fame star, and Fasci Zizek on. Those are both accounts that I haven't watched everything, but I'm in the process of actually going and watching a lot of Fame Star's podcasts. But he's a great dude. I love Fame Star. I love Tyler Hamilton. He's also a fellow Leaf. Maybe if I'm ever in Alberta one day, I'm going to go hang out with him. Fame Star is a great guy. Speaking of that certain guy in the chat, Moral Outrage, apparently he turned on his friend recently, another one. So, and they're in a bitch slap war together on Twitter. A certain accelerationist that was friends with Mark Fisher, they turned on each other. But sorry, this is the drama channel hour of BTR. It's getting late. I'm totally hungry.
Gio, by the way, Fed Post Alert has a good comment. The commentary YouTube community is the little village with little problems that we desperately want.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I would love to get the views of the Oreo man. And no, the reason not that I have anything against Nicholas DiOrio, but the only time I've ever interacted with him, he said I was stupid because I thought that Tommy C was kind of like Destiny. That's the only time I've ever interacted with the Oreo man. Other than that, I think they're all a bunch of grifters, except for Turkey Tom. He's mutuals with me. I love Turkey Tom.
By the way, Gio, Turkey.
Great content.
What do you think of Turkey in general? Not the country, but the food.
I'm not a fan of turkey, to tell you the truth. I've never been.
But the stuffing, the stuffing's good though, right? If it's...
I mean, my aunt, when we used to have family reunions before this bullshit. No, my aunt would have turkey, and I'm not that big of a fan of turkey. Like, if it's there, I'll eat it. Like, if like, for example, Timmy's, they have this like turkey bacon honey club thing. I'll eat that, but I'm not like, I wouldn't go out of my way to get turkey. Like, it's not, I'd rather have chicken. I'm more of a chicken person. That's my thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
More of a chicken lover.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if it's a good turkey, like if it's a butterball that's been prepared nicely, not one of these like big like things. If it's a nice small butterball that's been loved over, that's got a lot of spices and good stuffing, then I'll have turkey. But I've never had a good experience with turkey.
Yeah. But the
Logo Dallas going down the anti-Anglo. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The anti-Anglo stuff is interesting.
Do you like the ocean spray? What do you call it? That gelatinous cranberry sauce?
I'm not a big fan. No, I'm not a big fan.
Okay. Because that does kind of make the turkey for me. Although I like making the organic one with the actual.
The jam is the organic jam is nice. Yes.
Yeah.
Neck bone meat tender. Yeah, neck bone meat is all right. It's pretty good. I like when it's a bit crispy.
Gio, we should do like a food stream.
Yeah, we should do a food
like
stream.
a Gio food stream. Those would be
when it comes to dark. When I was younger, I used to just exclusively eat dark meat. But no, I've come to an appreciation of white meat now that I'm a bit older. Because when you have kids, you have like a lot of weird food hang-ups. But
what about sausages, like fermented meats, things like that?
Oh,
salami.
I have fresh sausage a lot, but I try to stay away from. I am trying to stay away from the salami, the gabagool, the mortadella. Like, I mean, it's really. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I still eat it from time to time. But I barbecue. Like, I barbecue a lot in the summer months. I grill a lot.
Nice.
I do because the thing is, like, when it comes to grilling, the only thing my old man really likes is sausage, whereas me, I'm more of like the chicken and beef. Like, he's not a big steak eater, but like he's more sausage and stuff like that. So
what's the cooking temperature for your meat on the grill? Do you like it rare or medium rare? Well done?
For steak?
Yeah, for steak.
I like medium rare to medium. That's my thing. Yeah, I don't like it too well done. It just ruins it. Medium rare is probably what we need more hungry Gio rants on BTR.
I love, by the way, how Buff always picks up on my idiosyncrasies of
fermented
language.
Meat. No, I don't like. I'm not a big fermented meat. No, I just can't. I can't. It's too anti-Mediterranean for me. The fermented meat. It's not gonna go down.
Well, like the Japanese, they have that funazushi, which is like ancient grandmother sushi.
Yeah.
You know. Anyway, guys, we're talking about food now. This is no good. We gotta end the show.
I'm more of a lean cheese person. I like my old man. He fucking loves the very like musky, bruschetta stuff, like certain types of chard, and I'm not a big fan of the smelly cheeses. I don't know.
Speaking of cheese, I mean, I love blue cheese, and
I love blue cheese. Yeah, it's
the
good.
raw blue cheese. You pair it up with a pear. Pear. With a pear, yeah.
Gorgonzola's nice. See, gorgonzola is nice when you have like something with a bit of body, like sausage or whatever. But no, I love when it comes to grilling, I like to have the good Italian sausage fresh from the butcher with some mortadella, but more what's it called? Bocconcino. Yeah, like I like to throw some bocconcino on the grill as well with it. And like of course the roasted red peppers. And me and my old man at the end of the summer we make a bonfire and we roast up the peppers.
Oh, speaking of peppers, here I got some peppers right here. See?
Oh, nice.
These are orange peppers.
But no, the best is you throw it in the freezer, and what you do, you thaw them out, the roasted red peppers. You put them in with some garlic, olive oil, and a little bit of rosemary, obviously, and oregano, a lot of oregano, and that's really good. Proper Italian oil.
Oregano oil is also good for when you have a stomach ache. And, works wonders.
I would say.
By the way, I don't know where Bruce is because I'm looking in the settings over here. No, I'm looking at the settings over here. It does not say.
Yeah,
Bruce.
Kazumazu. You have to have Kazumazu. Yeah. No. The one thing I would caution is that anytime you want to create your own original oil, please, just for your own safety, when it comes to either thyme oil, original oil, or rosemary oil, look up a well-reputable site and put like the proper ratio of vinegar as well, because unfortunately there is a risk of botulism when you're creating your own your own infused oils. There is a botulism risk, so I would look up a good recipe or just buy it, because when you buy it they'll have either they'll use flavorless not vitamin C, what's it called? Citric acid powder, or they'll use vinegar, which can affect the flavor. But you have to be cautious when you're creating your own infused oils, because there is a botulism risk. So I'm paranoid about that shit. But when you're using a good tomato, you really don't have to put any citrus in it, because the pH level is sufficiently low enough to inhibit. Plus, like my old man has the same canning recipe that was passed down by his grandmother. So, and none of our family has gotten botulism. So yeah. But I put a little bit
Bruce is back. Look,
Bruce, I'm hiding in between the walls of your apartment. Kind of like that one scene in The Matrix.
Oh shit, by the way, you made me remember a dream. I know some people love it, some people hate it when I talk about my dreams. But here we go. Real quick, okay? Here we go. So I had a dream last night that I was in this hallway. And no, first I was in a spacecraft, and I was going through space and through the open sky, and there were these alien spaceships right next to me. Then the point of view changed. For me, I still thought I was in the spaceship, but I was actually just walking, and I was walking in this red hallway, maybe inside of one of the spaceships, and I saw these men who were wearing like brown business suits, and they had android augmentations, and they were next to
those were the
smaller...
reticuli. Yeah.
What was that?
They were the Zeta Reticuli, Lev, the humanoids that various abductees say they look like humanoids, but they look like perfect Aryan humanoids. Yeah.
Well, no, they didn't look Aryan. I wouldn't say they didn't look like Aryans, but they looked like busybodies. They looked kind of like Dilbert. I don't know. They were like small heads, and like these.
Well, there was that one episode where Dilbert was impregnated by an alien and a robot, and that's. Yeah,
but they also looked like they were wearing like that thing from what's that movie with Matt Damon? Elysium. So they looked kind of like they had some kind of android attachments to them, and they all looked the same, each and every one of them. And then there were these drones that were also walking past. So at first, the first thing that I thought is I'm still in the spaceship, and these are like giant men. These are like men the size of spaceships.
Yeah, they
walking
say
past.
they're giant men. Yeah.
But then but then I wasn't quite sure. Anyway, then I ended up going into this inside of the spaceship or wherever I was, into the stage, and people were having a party, and what I was supposed to do is I was supposed to do a selfie photographing the people in the party, not myself, but the people in the party with the selfie, while my friend photographs my photograph at the exact same time, and that was supposed to stop this thing from exploding. Like, this whole thing was going to explode if we didn't do that in the right time. Unfortunately, with Dreams, you're not that good at clicking on your phone inside of Dreams. At least that's what I noticed. Like, it's hard to navigate your phone in the Dream.
Yeah, I've had those where it's hard to...
Yeah, so I tried to take the photo.
Pleiadians.
Well, I tried to take the photo, and I couldn't. And hold on, Quantum Lotus says, I believe you, I have had the exact type of experience. Well, let me know. Like, I don't know if you follow me on Twitter or not, Quantum Lotus, but it is, here's my Twitter account. Please follow me on Twitter and DM me and let me know about your experience. But anyway, I was not successful in undoing the explosion, but there wasn't any explosion. What happened was that time froze, and then I woke up. So, there we go.
Were they attractive, someone's asking?
Were who attractive? The
aliens.
Well, no, they just looked like some busybody office worker drone people.
Oh,
like they didn't
have gender. They didn't.
No, they were men, but they just looked totally unappealing. You know, they just looked like grunts. That's how I would describe them. Like grunts wearing brown suits. Brown
like
shirts,
Metropolis,
you could say.
Like that one scene in Metropolis.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Shuffling, like, yeah.
Well, they were just walking down the hallway doing whatever it is they do, and they all look the same. So, there we go. Oh, and I think, well, the other stuff in the Dream, it's, okay, I don't like Twitter, I can email you. Join our Discord. By the way, Quantum Lotus, if you are on Discord, we got to show the Discord too before we go. It is Discord, well, it's this. I'm posting it in the chat, so please follow me on the Discord. Go to the BTR Discord, make yourself at home. Bruce is up to his old tricks again. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for... Oh, wait, before we leave...
Bruce, we know the word you're trying to spell with the N and the R. We get it. I mean, come on. We get it.
Okay,
but it's...
here we go. Okay, so next we have over here...
the Ben Bruce again.
Okay, Tuesday, June 8th, we have Sean McCarthy coming in.
Oh!
And, well, but not only are we going to have Sean McCarthy, but we are also going to have another guest joining us for that. And, Gio, can you guess who that is?
Who?
Tom Sauer. He is coming back with us.
Oh, nice.
And we're going to be talking about the CIA and all kinds of fun stuff. Then we have Jonathan Pajeux coming in Thursday, June 10th. So that's the Thursday of next week.
Juneteenth, you mean Juneteenth?
Juneteenth, exactly. You're very excited for that, Gio. Then we're gonna have and then we are going to have Blackcom pilled. That is from the Fed Post. That is Tuesday, June 15th. And then we are gonna have Bog Beef Tuesday, June 22. We're gonna have Teres Zepanki. She is this Polish vlogger.
Yeah,
She's
send me her
Thursday.
info.
I definitely shall. And we are going to have Styx Hexenhammer 666 coming in Tuesday, June 29th.
Oh, bro. What are we going to talk about for that one?
That's going to be so fun. I don't know.
I can't think of like one thing to talk about with Styx besides like...
What are you talking about? He's a very smart guy.
No, but like, I mean, I don't want to piss him off. I know he's kind of touchy with certain subjects, but like... we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
No problem there at all. Okay, and of course, then we are going to have Uncle Doomer Thursday, July 8th.
Nice.
We are going to have, there are still a couple of potentials over here, but Thursday, July 22, I Hypocrite is coming in.
Oh!
And we are going to have... Yes, and we are going to have Wilford Riley of the Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism Fair coming in Thursday, August 5th. Don't you laugh, damn it! Don't you laugh!
We're going to have to get some racists for that one. We're going to have to get,
All right, next.
We'll find someone.
Thursday, August 19th, Jason Giorgiani. I was messaging back and forth with Jason recently on Facebook. Finally found somebody I could just talk about aliens with, like aliens and gods and thought forms.
Well, we'll have to work on getting. I know people, they always say the same things, like Keith Woods. Who else?
Yeah. Well, we're not out of
there's
the woods
a bunch
yet.
of other. I want to do another art stream soon as well with some people in the art world. That would be fun. I'd want to get, of course, Amy Therese. She's always open to coming on. So maybe Lev, she has her real account again. So Lev, if we have a slot that's unoccupied before Giorgiani, then make it happen. Make it, and tell her I sent you. So if you can.
We're gonna make it happen. So here I'm gonna write SD Amy Therese. Anyway, guys, this is the end of the stream. There is no more to say.
Yeah, get Theme Star. Yeah, we'll get Theme Star as well for one stream.
Theme Star. And Gio, we got to do
Tyler Hamilton on Twitter.
Excellent. And we got to do more streams about food next time in the Patreon only streams.
Yeah, we'll do the Patreon. Yeah. I think the Patreon only, we should do more stuff where it's like just me and you and another person talking. We talk about some good stuff.
Sure. And
get the civil rights icon. He's the Rosa Parks of our generation. Mojo. I'm Mojo. I take it you're also a PPP Godwinson fan as well. So the civil rights icon. Woods McNabb Fame Star. They're a great guest. That's pretty. Yeah, Woods McNabb Fame Star. I mean, we'd have to I shudder to think of a leftist that would also come on for one of those streams, but we'll see. I mean, I don't know if Amy Therese counts as a leftist at this point. But no, I mean, yeah, I'd love to get Amy Therese on. She's definitely one of them. Get Bruce on. Well, maybe. I think Bruce was on one Patreon stream. But yeah, sorry, we gotta go, Lev. It's fucking 9:00 here.
We gotta go, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe. I don't know how you have not subscribed yet. Take care. Good night, everybody.
God bless.